Okay, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hope you are well. And welcome to this live stream. Okay. We'll get started in a bit. But somebody actually pointed out something to me, which is that I'm usually in a bit of a hurry to start. That I should actually give a bit of time for people to join rather than jump straight into it. I guess that's me just being a bit too sensitive with respect to the time. I don't want to, waste anybody's time usually. So I try to just get on and start quickly. And because also I think a lot of more people watch this afterwards rather than live. So it's better to just straight away jump in. But I'll take that on board for those who want to join, to participate live. I should give a bit of time in the beginning for people to congregate. Okay. Hey, assalamu alaikum. Hope you're well. I think you're the only person here. No, it's 3 of us now. Okay, let me get at least the presentation ready. And then maybe we'll start in a minute. Okay. I forgot to actually set it up. Where's that tab? Here we go. Okay, there we are. Let me put myself in the corner. All right, so I don't know how long I should actually wait before starting. But like I said, I want to give a bit more time for people to gather, because that is something which I did get a few messages about. So I'll wait a little bit before getting onto the actual stream. Assalamu alaikum. Let me just check something else quickly. This will not be a long stream. I mean, a long presentation. It will be won't be very short either. It will be sort of like down the middle from what I usually have. And I wonder how many of you guys are watching the World Cup. If anybody has any teams they're supporting or anything. Okay, I'll start now. Something else I should add. I'll probably let me add it later when our brother joins us. Anyway, okay, let's get started. So what do I want to talk about today? So this image that I've put here, some of you might recognize it. It's basically the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, as they said, and they were guided by a cloud of light, or a cloud, which looked like a pillar of fire by night or something like that, right? Will be relevant later on. You'll see why I put this here. But okay, the actual title, God has no rights. God has no rights. What do I mean by that? Well, when someone's rights are violated, then it means an injustice has been done towards them. So those are the kind of rights I'm talking about here, right? So when somebody has rights, those rights can be violated, correct? That means an injustice is being done to them. And we then have the very human response, the feeling of feeling bad for the victim. Okay? We feel bad for the victim, become sad for their account, and can even start to become angry for them, angry for their sake, okay, and wanting that injustice be corrected, be ratified. And in traditional Islam, that's what we are taught. We are taught, using certain hadiths to have this similar sort of idea, and then we are expected to have a similar sort of response. And a lot of us do. We're trained that way, into thinking that God has rights, and to be angry when His rights are violated, right? When His rights are violated by us mere mortals. Okay. So it's in this sort of sense that I mean when I put in the title that God has no rights. God has no rights that can be violated, right? It's not like us between ourselves. We have rights upon each other, and we can violate that upon each other. And then, like I said, we get these feelings of injustice and sadness towards the other. But God doesn't have such rights, right? We cannot violate any of God's rights. We cannot do any injustice towards Him. The hadith which is used in that, it's it says the rights of it's a very bad hadith in terms of it's very anti-Qur'anic, but it says the rights of the Lord upon His servants, right, is that they do not worship any but Him, and the right upon the servants upon the rights of the servants upon their Lord is that He does not punish them if they do that. Meaning that if they do not worship other than Him, then it's their right that He never punishes them, which is completely anti-Quranic, right? The punishment in the Quran has got nothing to do with just either you're serving Allah or not serving Allah. If you're serving Allah, if you're, and you worship only Allah, you have only Him as your Rabb. I'm talking about, intellectually and vocally, right? In the purest sense, when Allah is truly your Rabb, you will not be doing anything which you need to be punished for. But in a general sense, if somebody's worshipping God alone, that doesn't mean they get a free pass to not be punished for anything else. Okay, and you find in hadiths, the hadiths are littered with these sort of things, right? If you just there are many hadiths which seem nice, which seem fine, but if you just take a step back and give them a little bit of thought, you see how they break down. In terms of before a Quranic mindset, they break down completely. Okay, so God doesn't have those kind of rights. Okay, those kind of rights where we then end up feeling sad for God, or feeling that He has some injustice has been done with Him. And I think these sort of things, these sort of ideas, end up leading to a type of, they're one of the ways and the signs of extremists and fanatics. They're one of the ways in which people become fanatics and extremists. They start to have this idea that they're protecting God's rights. Okay, that they're protecting God's rights, and that they are, avenging injustice done to God, those sort of things. Okay, and this, of course, is tied into the whole idea of shirk and what is shirk, which we've discussed plenty of times before, so I don't want to rehash that. Sort of what prompted me to think about this a little bit was a post that was put up on Reddit, and in that post there was basically an anecdotal story which I've copy pasted over here, and we're just going to go through it a little bit. But the actual post itself was talking about how nobody that it's dangerous. Basically, the title of it was that it's really dangerous to say we already understand Tawheed. Okay, it was posted on the Qur'an in a subreddit, which is odd because the person who posted it is obviously an admirer of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. But again, in another way, it's not surprising because I know that many people come to Quranism or Qur'aniyun. They come into this from a background of staunch Salafism and Wahhabism, where there's a lot said against shirk, And then when they start to realize that, even within the sectarianism there is some shirk, then they start to go deep into it, and they hold some of the admiration for Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and Ibn Taymiyyah, those who sort of like pushed this sort of what I definitely consider to be an extremist, superstitious idea of shirk and what it is, and that it's rampant in the Muslim Ummah and that sort of thing, which it might be, but it's not in the way which they would say it is. So anyway, the post was, we already understand Tawheed might be the most dangerous sentence a Muslim can say. That was the title. And in it was a story, an anecdote talking about how, the students of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, they basically said, we're finished with learning Tawheed, let's move on to something else. And apparently the Sheikh wanted to teach them a lesson. And so in comes the story. The Sheikh doesn't say anything, but in comes the story. A few days later, the Sheikh, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, enters the gathering of the students, looking visibly disturbed. Okay, and his students asked, what happened? And the Sheikh replied, I heard that a family sacrificed a rooster for a jinn in front of their house, and I sent someone to confirm it. Okay, and this is basically what the poster said. It says, pause there. Sacrificing to other than Allah is major shirk, right? And of course, I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. But this is what he's saying. It's major shirk. It destroys a person's Islam entirely. Okay, and why? And then he quotes the verse. Allah says, indeed, Allah does not forgive associating partners with Him, but He forgives what is less than that for whomever He wills. Truly, Allah does not forgive that shirk is done with Him, but He forgives anything else, which we've discussed on this channel a number of times. Okay, so then what happened? Time passes in this anecdote, and the students later asked him what actually happened. They said, hey, Sheikh, remember you told us before that you sent somebody to investigate that incident where this family had sacrificed a rooster to a jinn? And the Sheikh replied, the report was false. They did not sacrifice to other than Allah, but a man did fornicate with his own mother. And immediately the students erupted. We seek refuge from Allah. He fornicated with his own mother, and they were outraged. Okay, and this again from the post says that was the lesson, that these students, their hearts exploded with outrage over incest with somebody with incest with their own mother, but when they thought someone committed shirk, their reaction was calm. Okay, there was no horror, no shock, no trembling, and apparently here the Sheikh exposed that. He exposed something terrifying. According to OP, they emotionally considered zina worse than shirk. Okay, that is what happens, he says, when Tawheed is studied with the tongue but never settles in the heart. And that's the end of that anecdote. And you can see already over here, okay, this kind of teaching that's been was spread among Muslims, among other people. Okay, you can see how it's sort of like gearing people towards a type of fanaticism. Right, that they should be exploding with rage, with horror. They should have this reaction, okay, to somebody sacrificing a rooster to a jinn, something which harms nobody, doesn't do anything. Okay, it's just basically a harmless stupidity. It's nothing. Okay, it's not even really shirk, according to the Qur'anic standards, really. So anyway, I put a comment in there. I said, in your story, the reaction of the students was correct. That reaction was closer to fitrah. That was a reaction of a human being to hearing that somebody had fornicated with their own mother. They would have been shocked, it would be horror. But somebody sacrificing a rooster to a jinn, it's not a big deal. Okay, it isn't. Okay. What's really happening here is the Sheikh was actually corrupting them and brainwashing them about shirk. Okay. So what OP was pushing for in this story is this sort of contrived outrage for the sake of Allah, that somebody sacrificing a rooster for a jinn, this is going to make Allah go ballistic. Okay, how dare you do? No, I mean, so what? Okay, when one which is basically this kind of like outrage, it's spread in these kind of stories and it's ingested by people. So then they think they have, they have it. Okay, they think they have to have this kind of rage and outrage towards, these sort of things which they consider to be shirk, and that leads to this kind of fanaticism, okay, where people start to like see shirk here and here, and and you have this sort of like, I think, sort of like made up weeping, people sitting there crying, oh, these people are doing shirk over there, oh, and the person's crying, right? And I look at these as crocodile tears. What do you mean you're crying? You're crying because somebody's doing shirk. Who are you crying for? For Allah? I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay? Allah is not harmed by our shirk nor our polytheism. Okay? There's no injustice actually done to Allah. Okay? Ever. Okay? The injustice of shirk is one which you actually do to your own self. Okay? Why? Because it is if you understand what shirk is, again, what is shirk? It's ibadah to others with Allah. It's not just about sacrificing and prostrating. It's not these things. It's ibadah. It's making yourself an abd, a servant, right? Docile, right? Reverence to others with Allah. Okay, letting them control you. Okay, that's why it's injustice. It's injustice to your own self. Okay, it's debasing your free self, which is created to be an ubudiyyah to Allah alone. Okay, you're debasing it into to be an abd and ibadah to others with Allah. Okay, while you know that these others are not worthy of your ubudiyyah, of your servitude. That's the issue of shirk. Okay, it has nothing to do with any kind of rights of Allah being violated. There's no rights of Allah which can be violated. He has no rights. He's above having rights. Okay, so people, of course, on the back of that, they might object, using this verse in Luqman, Surah Luqman, which says, "With قال Luqman libnihi," when Luqman said to his son, وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ, and he's given him some wa'ad, some admonition, some advice, instructing him, يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. O my son, do not do shirk with Allah. Indeed, shirk with Allah is a great injustice. Okay, now it doesn't say injustice against God, but of course that's unfortunately what's taken traditionally, that shirk is an injustice being done against God. Right? That shirk is an injustice being done against who? Against God. But no, that isn't the case. The injustice here which is being done is against your own self. Okay, because Allah created you to be free from ubudiyyah to anybody else. Okay, there's nothing in the universe, the whole of the universe, the whole of the cosmos, from Jibreel to the angels, no matter what it is, that has a claim on your ubudiyyah. Allah has freed you from that. You don't have to serve anything at all, nothing, only Him, right? And so when you debase yourself into ubudiyyah to others, that is a huge injustice against yourself. You are lowering yourself, right? Allah has elevated you to being above being in ubudiyyah to anything else, and you lower yourself. You make yourself into a slave to something else. Okay, that's where the huge injustice is. It's not against God. Again, you just have to think about it as well philosophically. Why would it be an injustice to God, right? Is it because, He created us, sustained us, blessed us with, hearing, sight, minds? Is it just because of the blessings He has done for us, that because of that now He has the right He has these rights, He gets these rights because of the good that He's done to us? Or does He have these rights because of who He is, right? Which is it? Or really, is He above having any kind of sort of rights in that sort of sense where some injustice or violation of them can actually happen? Okay. So what is it? Is it because it is right that He is our only Rabb, or because it is His right to be our only Rabb? How is that actually being thought of philosophically? Right, the idea that shirk is an injustice against God. What is the actual argument there? So let's look at actually some verses where you have this idea come up a lot, right? Here we have with قال موسى لقومه, and recall when Moses said to his people, "O my people, indeed you have wronged yourselves by taking of the calf." Now, of course, it says for worship, but I've noted before many times in the Quran never mentions that the Israelites were in ibadah to the golden calf. They were never in servitude to it. They never, quote unquote, worshipped it. No, they took it as an ilah, but they were not in ibadah to it. Okay, because it was an inanimate object. You cannot be in ibadah to an inanimate object. Okay, but they took it as an ilah. Right? They took it as an ilah, and the traditional Islam would say that that was dhulm against Allah. That was injustice done towards Allah. But the Quran here says no, it was injustice that they did to themselves. Right? وإذ قال موسى لقومه يا قوم إنكم ظلمتم أنفسكم باتخاذكم العجل. Right? You did injustice to your own selves. It didn't say you did injustice to Allah, so do tawbah to Allah, do tawbah to your Creator. No, it says you wronged yourselves, so repent towards your Creator. Right? Repent towards your Creator, and then it says, of course, kill yourselves. And of course, what the meaning of that here really is, فَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ فَتُوبُوا إِلَى بَارِئِكُمْ فَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُم means to sort of like kill yourselves in your ibadah, not murder yourselves, to like really be strenuous in your ibadah, right? And it was warranted here because they they took the golden calf as an ilah after everything that Allah had done to them, right? They really needed to really sink deep into an ibadah, into a tawbah. They really get, kill themselves in tawbah, do a strenuous tawbah, okay? Because whatever the problem is, it's very deep rooted in them. It was incredibly deep rooted in them, because Allah took them out of Egypt. They saw all the signs over there. The miracles that were done, against Fir'aun. The signs against him, the opening of the Red Sea, and then you have, of course, the pillar, like in the image I had in the beginning. The pillar of the clouds covering them. In the Bible, of course, it's a cloud of sort of like light, and at night it was like a cloud of fire or light. He sent down the quails and the birds and السلة والمنة and all of these things, right? So all of these blessings towards them, and then Musa leaves for a little bit, and then they create the ijl, right, the golden calf, and take it as an ilah. Say this is the ilah of Musa, your ilah and the ilah of Musa, but he's forgotten, right? So this is there was a real problem there, right? That after all of that, they turned to they took the golden calf as an ilah. So they needed to make a real deep tawbah. فَتُوبُوا إِلَىٰ بَارِئِكُمْ فَاقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُم. Kill yourselves in it. Just like how now we say he killed it, he smashed it, that sort of thing, right? So kill it in tawbah, basically, right? Kill it in tawbah. Anyway, so the point is here, of course, is that the zulm that was done was not against Allah, it was against their own selves. Okay? And we have this again, all right? It's mentioned actually a number of times, okay? And here we have the whole, all of the blessings that was shown to them, right? That was done to them. وَظَلَّلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الْغَمَامَ وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى كُلُوا مِنْ طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ وَمَا ظَلَمُونَا وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. And we indeed, we shaded you with the clouds and sent down to you manna and quails, saying, eat from the good things which we have provided for you. And they wronged us not. What does it mean they wronged us not here? Because after all of this that they took the ijl. So the wronging themselves here, when the verse here is saying, وَمَا ظَلَمُونَ, they did not wrong us. They did not wrong us in what? What did they not wrong Allah in? They did not wrong him when they took the golden calf for worship. Because that's what happened. The wronging of themselves here is their taking of the golden calf as an ilah, even after all that Allah had done to them, right? So if you're going to talk about this idea that God has these rights that can be violated because of the good that he's done to us, the blessings that he's given to us, well, look at the blessings which he gave to the Israelites, okay? Very few received blessings as they did as a people, and then they took the golden calf, and still Allah says they didn't wrong us, okay? You can't wrong Allah, right? They're taken of the golden calf. Ma ظَلَمُونَ, they did not wrong us, but what did they do? They were wronging their own selves. لَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. They only wronged themselves. And again here, the same thing. وَقَطَّعْنَاهُمْ اثْنَتَا عَشَرَةَ أَصْبَاطًا أُمَمًا. And we divided them into 12 descendant tribes, as distinct nations. And we inspired to Moses when his people implored him for water, strike with the staff, the stone, and there gushed forth from it 12 springs. Every people, meaning every tribe, knew its watering place. And we shaded them with the clouds and sent down to them the men and the quails, saying, eat from the good things which we have provided for you. وَمَا ظَلَمُونَا. But they did not do any injustice to us. When they took the golden calves, when they took the golden calf, when they ignored his commandments, when they did all of these other injustices, none of them were injustices against God. وَمَا ظَلَمُونَا. They did not do injustice to us, but it was only themselves that they were wronging. It was only themselves that they were wronging. So these are just verses which I'm putting here to put forward the idea that God doesn't have any rights which any injustice can be done to him by violating them. Okay? And mankind's injustice is only against each other, against themselves. So I have this verse in Surah Yunus, فَلَمَّا أَنْجَيْنَاهُمْ إِذَا هُمْ يَبْغُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنَّمَا بَغْيُكُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Right? But when he saved them, and this of course referenced in the previous verses, at once they committed injustices upon the earth without right. And then here we have this sort of like kind of announcement. Okay? يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنَّمَا بَغْيُكُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا ثُمَّ إِلَيْنَا مَرْجِعُكُمْ فَنُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. O mankind, your injustice is only against yourselves. It's only against yourselves. The injustice that mankind does on this earth, in this world, it's only towards each other. Okay? There's never any injustice which goes up against Allah at all. And it's usually the result of trying to gain something from the dunya, right? The baghi that people do against each other. It's usually about the dunya. Okay, then to us is your return, and we will inform you of what you used to do. Okay. There's other verses which mention quite frequently in the Quran how God is not harmed. God is not harmed. God is not harmed. Why are we told in a number of verses that God is not harmed by anything? Okay. Here's one of the reasons to mitigate any fanaticism, right, for God by the faithful. So again, this idea that people can have these like low opinion, low view of God, right? The Quran mentions it. وَمَا قَدْرُ اللَّهِ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. You don't have the concept of Allah as he should be, right? And of course not. So just like you can have between polytheists, right? Let's talk about actual polytheists who sort of like view like they need to protect their own gods. There's this verse in Surah Yasin. Let me try to remember actually right now. What was it? لعلهم ينصرون. What was it? I'm trying to remember it. Just looking through the verses now. وهم لهم جند منصرون. That was it. وهم لهم جند منصرون. جند. There we go. So that's this verse in Surah Yasin where it says وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ آلِهَةً لَعَلَّهُمْ يَنصُرُونَ. And they take other than Allah آلهة, gods, that they may be helped. لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند منصرون. They are not able to help them, and they for them are like soldiers in attendance. And it's a sort of like a vague, not vague, but it's a double meaning. It has a double meaning, that verse. One of them is that you find the polytheists stand as sort of like soldiers ready to defend their gods, right? You find the mushrikeen as well, but in general, just the polytheists, they will stand before their gods, wanting to protect them and help them. that kind of fanaticism towards him. Okay, the same thing happened with Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? Because what did he do? Of course, he smashed all the idols except the big one. And what did the crowd say? Burn him and help your aliha, help, defend your gods, Okay, why? Because this person is hurting the gods, right? These people or this person or that person, you're hurting our gods. So we're going to defend our gods. We're going to fight against you. We're going to now, have this sort of like mob mentality to protect our gods. Almost it's kind of like patriotism, wanting to protect, the identity of yourself by the identity of your God, right? So is this why this is being mentioned in the Quran quite a few times? Okay, that don't worry, God is not harmed in any way. Okay, he doesn't need you to defend him in this sort of like fanatic way where you think that you are going to actually defend the rights of God. Okay, so it's a question. Okay, why is that mentioned in the Quran so many times? Okay, that God is not harmed in any way. So let's look at a few examples of that. Here is even one where it's not this one. Sorry, the next one will be about where it's directed at the Prophet Muhammad, but this one is about him. So this is one of the saddest verses I think in the Quran. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. Right, and Muhammad is not but a messenger. Other messengers have passed on before him. So if he was to die or be killed, would you turn back on your heels? And he who turns back on his heels will never harm Allah at all, will never harm God at all. But God will reward the grateful, the shakirin, the people who do shukr. Remember what shukr is? It is to actually use the blessings which have been given to you. So, the Sahaba at the time of the Prophet came to them and, he delivered the guidance and the message and everything. And the shukr is to act in accordance with with that blessing which has been given to you, right? And acting in accordance with that, Allah will reward those, the shakirin, the real shakirin, the ones who did shukr. Shukr being the actions in accordance with the blessings that God has given you. But the idea here is that when the Prophet dies, there will be many who, and many did. I mean, there's an indication in this verse that some would turn away on their heels, and some did, of course. And that is no call for the others, for the faithful, to then end up being sort of like, have again this kind of fanaticism of, we need to protect the religion, protect what God has sent, okay, by attacking those who turned away. Okay, by and this is sort of like a verse also which is against the apostasy, the idea of apostasy, that when if somebody apostates, they should be killed. So here it's saying that the person, if people apostate to turn away after the Prophet has delivered his message and died, you yourself be among the shakirin, right? And don't worry, the other people turning away doesn't harm God. You don't need to have a huge reaction over it. Okay. You don't need to have any reaction over it, in fact. Okay, whoever turns upon their heels, they will not harm Allah at all. Okay, so why worry? And again, here in this verse, it says it's one of the in the last surah that was revealed, and it indicates, the state of affairs in the time of the Prophet, that there were those who were racing towards kufr, right? And this is a time where in traditional Islam we understand that everybody had become Muslim. Everybody at this time was Muslim. And yet here, the Quran talks about those who race in kufr, right? So it says, وَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ الَّذِينَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْكُفْرِ, and do not be grieved, saddened, O Muhammad, speaking to him in the first person, by those who hasten, who race into kufr. Okay? يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْكُفْرِ, right? And it doesn't have to even mean into kufr, like they were not in kufr and now they've got into it, but they actually race with kufr. They're racing in kufr. They're already in kufr. Indeed, they will never harm Allah at all, right? إِنَّهُمْ لَن يَضُرُّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. They will not harm Allah at all. The Prophet Muhammad is being told that, right? So why? I mean, was it even something that the Prophet Muhammad was susceptible to? Being sad for God's sake, right? Being sad that God has sent down, taught Iman, sent the messengers and all, and then these people are racing in kufr, and I'm feeling sad for God's sake because he, how must God be feeling? That sort of thing. No, okay. So why should anybody ever feel sad or sorry for God? Okay, nobody needs to feel sad or sorry for God in any way. Okay, that anguish and sadness about kufr or shirk towards God, it's just not something which is in the Quranic purview. Right? It's not something which the Quran is trying to spread. Okay, any kind of anguish or sadness about kufr or shirk that's been done towards God. Okay, you're not supposed to feel sad about it in any way at all, right? Because it doesn't harm God, right? You can feel sad about it for the people themselves, okay, but not in relation to Allah or the rights of Allah or anything like that. You know, like I said, it seems here that the Prophet himself might have felt this kind of sadness. That's why it's being told. Okay, لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر إنهم لن يضروا الله شيئا. Don't let those who race in kufr make you sad in any way, okay, because they are not harming Allah. The implication here is that, you know, that the Prophet was sad for God's sake. That the Prophet was sad for God's sake. Okay, quote unquote. We'll talk about God's sake in a minute. Here's another one. إن الذين اشتروا الكفر بالإيمان لن يضروا الله شيئا ولهم عذاب أليم. Indeed, those who purchase kufr for faith, never will they harm Allah at all, and for them is a painful punishment. So again, kufr does not harm Allah. Okay, doesn't harm Allah at all. You don't need to feel sad for Allah. You don't need to feel like that any injustice has been done to him. You don't need to feel anything like that. Okay, okay, it's not even an injustice to God when faith itself is exchanged for kufr. Is this another one? Yeah, another one. إن الذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله وشاقوا الرسول من بعد ما تبين لهم الهدى لن يضروا الله شيئا. Okay, وسيحبط أعمالهم. Indeed, those who have, you know, kufr, who have done kufr and averted people from the path of Allah and opposed the messenger after guidance had become clear to them, never will they harm Allah. Why are we told this so many times in the Quran? That, you know, these things are not going to harm Allah. Okay, and I'm starting to think that it is to sort of like overcome this kind of like I said this in the beginning. There's a type of fanaticism that people have where they think that God is being harmed and they need to protect God just in the same way, like like I said, like in the story of Ibrahim, where the kuffar wanted to protect their idols, right? And so what did they do? They wanted to burn Ibrahim. And now some people have this sort of mentality. Now some Muslims have this mentality. They see, you know, people doing what they think is shirk or kufr, and they think, oh my God, we have to protect Allah or help Allah, and then they have this overblown reaction, right, of animosity and hatred towards them, okay, of wanting to harm them back or fight them or whatever it is, okay, but it's that sort of idea. So I think that that concept is being mitigated in the Quran by being constantly reiterated throughout the Quran. It's sort of like very, very spread out all over the Quran that God is not harmed. God is not harmed. No injustice is ever done to God. So calm down. But of course, people might. One of the things that people point to is this verse in Surah Maryam about God taking a son. Right, so you have this famous set of verses, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا, and they say the most merciful has taken for himself a son. You have indeed, done لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا. You've brought a monstrous claim, a monstrous thing, a huge thing, an atrocious thing. The heavens almost ruptured therefrom, and the earth splits open, and the mountains collapse in devastation, that they attribute to the most merciful his son. Okay, and it is not appropriate for the most merciful that he should take his son. Now, I think most people have this idea that this is almost like God threatening a divine tantrum, right? That like Allah is very, very angry. Okay, he's very, very angry that people are saying that he has a son. Okay, and because of that, he's almost about to, I'm gonna tear shit up, right? I'm gonna destroy the heavens, the earth, smash these mountains, like a tantrum, right? And this idea that Allah is about to throw a tantrum, an angry fit, and start breaking things up, right? Why? Because people said he has a son. Okay, that is not how I view this at all, and I don't think it's a very good image to have about Allah. This is basically just hyperbole, of course, trying to show that this is a huge thing. Okay, this is very different, and the reason why it's huge is actually got to do with an understudied part of it, the end of it. The end of it, people usually stop over here because they the last verse which says وَمَا يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّحْمَنِ يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا. It is not befitting for Rahman that he should take a son. Okay, now what would happen if people took if Allah did have a son? The issue with Allah having a son is that if he has a son, we would have to be in ibadah to that son. Okay, we'd have to be in ibadah to that son. Okay, and we have that verse which is a proof in the Quran where it says قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدٌ فَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْعَابِدِينَ. Say, O Muhammad, if Ar-Rahman really did take a son, then I would be the first of his worshippers. I will be the first among those who are in ibadah to him. Now, what would that do to the heavens and the earth when there's some other being out there being claimed to be the son of Allah? Or to be, well, then people, creatures all over the cosmos, they would be expected to be in ibadah to that son, right? And that creates that sort of like rift in sort of like in sort of how things are done. So تكاد السماوات يتفطرن منه. It's almost as if the heavens will split because of it, right? What does that mean? Who are in the heavens? You can talk about the people in the heavens, right? They would be split. Those who are in ibadah to Allah, those who are in ibadah to His Son, right? And you have, the idea of the mountains crumbling, okay, as well, because again, you're talking about this kind of like split in reality, okay? It's not the case, and so that's why the last part of the verse says, "In kullu man fis samawati wal ard illa ati ar-Rahman abda." Okay. There is nothing in the heaven and the earth, no one there, except that he must come to Ar-Rahman as a abd, as a servant in ibadah. Okay? And the issue with Ar-Rahman having a son is that son, other things would have to be in ibadah to him. And so you have this sort of fracture in everything. Okay? In that uniformity where everything is in ibadah to Allah gets fractured because now someone in ibadah to his son, and of course, it will be expected that if Rahman did take a real son, right, then that son would be conform to what Allah wants anyway, right? But we're talking about the wrong claim about these other entities or people who claim to be the sons of Allah. That those will not be always in accordance with their desires will not be the same as Allah's desires. Well, Allah's a real son if he were to take a real son. If you take my meaning there. Okay. So again, let me just what I wrote here, let me read it out. Because if Allah did have a son, then we would have to be in ibadah to his son too. Right? And so in fact, the Christians are not wrong in trying to worship or be in ibadah to Jesus while they think him to be the only begotten Son of God or God himself, of course. Okay. The problem is that he is neither, okay, and claim to be neither. And the bigger problem here is that you can have some angel, some messenger, some person claiming to be the son of Allah, and then people are in ibadah to him, and that creates problems, okay, because you have this, of course, you have shirk and all the problems that come about with shirk as well, right? Okay, so the last thing I want to mention is this idea for God's sake. So even the notion of doing things, when we talk about doing things for God's sake, okay, while it is an acceptable and understandable colloquial meaning and usage, i.e. to please God, it is really a misleading wording, okay, when you look at it carefully, okay, because when you do things for someone's sake, usually it means you do it for their benefit. You're doing it for their benefit. But here, of course, when we talk about we do something for Allah's sake, for His sake, what we really mean is we do it for our own sakes, okay? Because what we are trying to do is gain the benefit to ourselves by pleasing God, right? But it's a benefit to us that we please God. So when we talk about doing things for God's sake, we're really saying that we're doing things so that God will be pleased with us. So it's really for our sake. It's not for God's sake. But it's just a nuance I've started to notice. Okay, and that's it. All right. Let's end there. Where should I leave? Hold on, let me leave the slide somewhere. Should I leave it in the first image? Let's go there. Why not? Okay. Let me have a look. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, yes, Abdul Nasir, I hope you're well. By the way, everybody, my good friend here, Abdul Nasir, he and another friend of his were kind enough to create these short videos, which I will, they send them to me on a file, and I'm going to upload them on my channel soon. I'm not sure when I'll get the time to do it, but I'm definitely going to do that. Jazakallah khair. Abdul Nasir, thank you so much for that. Okay, thank God we're not in a Muslim country. We would be killed for such a topic alone. Yeah, well, that's what I mean, right? Just having that mentality that, it's exactly the mentality of the people of Ibrahim, okay? But now we are having it for God, right? They had it for their idols. We're having that same mentality of those mushrikeen. We're having that mentality for Allah. Okay, and that's the problem. It's a fanatical mentality. We should not be having that mentality ourselves. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. So if someone is burning the Quran, we just let them and do nothing. Yeah, I mean, burning the Quran is a pretty meaningless thing. I mean, I'm not saying like do nothing, but essentially, yes. I mean, just leave them. I mean, what do you want to do? What would you suggest? I mean, you talk to them, okay, advise them. But somebody who's doing something like that, it's an act of jahl, and you just turn away from the jahilin. From jahilin, you just turn away because you can't reach somebody who is in that sort of like agitated jahili state. Somebody who's in that state where they're going to, I'm going to burn the Quran. That's not somebody who is in a state where you can get through to him. Maybe after he's burnt it, okay, and you can come and have a chat with him. Okay, you got that out of your system, buddy? Gone? You feel happy now? Okay, now maybe you can talk to them. But even in the Quran, it says that if you see the verses of Allah or His signs being mocked or ridiculed, then just don't sit with them until they turn to another discourse. Right, so that even that is telling you that a person who is mocking God, mocking the religion, burning the Quran, all of these things, while they're doing that, you don't sit with them. When they move on to a different topic, you can actually go back and sit with them. Right, you actually go back and sit with the same people who were just a while ago doing all of that. Okay, while they're doing that, you leave them. When they move on to a different topic, you can go back to them. It's not an issue, because we need to have a presence. Okay, if you need to have a presence among I don't know how to say this, like have a presence among the evil, right, to represent the good. How otherwise will things change? Because when you see evil happening or bad things happening, it's usually being done by the leaders in there. A'immat al-kufr. The Quran talks about the leaders of kufr. Right? And these are the people who everybody else is just following, looking up to. And if they remain unchallenged, then the flock, the unthinking herd of people who are just following along, they're not going to have something that can draw them away from them, if you take my meaning. All right, I have Salman. Assalamu alaikum. But your device is not connected, it's saying. Salman, I have you backstage, but it's saying your device says they will need to connect their mic cam before you can add them to the stream. So you can, if you want to come on, please do reconnect. I think this is the same. This is you as well, right? Salman backstage. same username here, Salman's ZX. So if you want to hop on, just try to reconnect your device, take off the headphones, put them back in. I'm not sure. Let me check the private chat and see if you've written anything there. Let's comments. Where's the private comments? There we go. Maybe I'll have to remove you before you can join again. So now, let's say in the chat are 2 people. You need to connect your mic. I've misspelled connect. No reply. Okay, I don't know if he's actually here or not. Salman, if you're actually backstage, let me remove you from, from backstage, and then maybe you can come back on. Oh, there we go. Not related to the topic, but what's your definition of success and how one can achieve it? Well, that depends what you mean by success, right? You mean falah, like what the Quran calls falah? Is that what you mean by that? Generally, if you want, let me actually just remove you backstage, if that is you. Maybe it's somebody else, but let me remove them from the studio. Then maybe they can come back in, whoever that is. So in the Quran, if you look at I did that video essay called Qur'anic Islam versus Inherited Islam, where we looked at sort of like the backbone aims which are presented in the Quran, that you have ibadah, right? That, Allah created us to be in ibadah. And why should we be in ibadah to Allah? Because ibadah leads to taqwa. And then why should we have taqwa of Allah? Because taqwa leads to shukr, right? And if you continue on that, from the Quran, shukr leads to a higher Quranic aim, which is falah. Falah is that success, okay? Falah is success. But falah in Arabic and in the Quran, it's something which is two-way. We talk about success, it's actually a farming metaphor, falah, right? Al-fallah is the farmer, right? Al-muflih is the person who has sort of like harvested, okay? So it's a kind of a two-way thing. When you have success, you have to put in your own effort, just like the farmer puts in effort, readies the ground, toils it, right? Plants the seeds, waters, all of that. But then they get their harvest when things grow and ripen, and they get that back. So you have the work which you put in, and then you have the the sort of like the blessings that God will bring out, from your work. And these two together are falah, right? Those two together are success. So I was going to say one thing that will lead to success, without a doubt, it's taqwa, right? That's the primary Quranic virtue, the middle Quranic virtue, the central Quranic aim. It's taqwa, right? All of the lower Quranic aims funnel into taqwa, and from taqwa come all of the higher ones. So success is to be of the muttaqeen, to be of the people of taqwa. I don't know if that answers your question, but I didn't have much to go on. All right, I don't have anybody backstage anymore. I removed Salman. I don't know if that was you or a different Salman, but I removed them. And if there's nothing else, I don't have any other questions, nobody wants to come on, then we will end this stream a little bit early. But think a little bit of what I said. I know the title might seem a little bit controversial, but the basic idea is, again, that we're talking about these kind of rights which can be violated. And God says repeatedly in the Quran that, no injustice is done to him, right? Nothing ever harms him. because nothing, no rights of his can ever be violated. Shirk does not violate God's rights. All right, here we have somebody backstage. Silver Fox, bringing you on. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. How are you, bro?
I'm good. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It's been a while since I came on. But
All right, good to have you. I don't recognize the name though. What was the name you used to come on before with?
I think it was Silver something, or maybe it was Fox. I can't remember.
Silver
It was a
Surfer.
while- no, it wasn't Silver Surfer. It was something else. I can't remember, but it was something Fox.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. How have you been anyway?
Alhamdulillah, not bad. Just work and balancing everything out.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. What about you? How's everything with you? Yeah, the grind, exactly.
Yeah, I'm good. Alhamdulillah, I'm good as well. Same as you, in the grind.
Yeah.
I'm due to be changing circumstances a little bit soon.
Oh, really?
So then maybe things will change a little bit. So we'll see.
I think last I remember you said you were in Saudi.
Yeah, so I've been in Saudi, UAE, just all around the Middle East. That's where I've worked mostly. I'm going to be.
Is that for work?
Yeah, for work.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to be moving jobs, quitting my job soon.
Oh, really?
And then in that interim period, I have
Okay.
decided to try like at least 6 to 9 months. I'll be able to budget for that much of trying to do trying to get back into doing YouTube. I'll try to do it like properly full time. And see what happens if I get enough support to continue with it. Because I'm starting to see, to be honest, that there's a lot of things that I've wanted to do that I'm just not going to be able to do unless I'm doing it full time. There's so many like projects which I've had on hold and things like that. I'm like, okay, I just can't find the time to do it. Here it's also because I've been homeschooling my kids, so that's one of the reasons that takes a lot of time as well. And I've got a very young daughter as well.
How do you find doing the schooling? Is it tough? Because I'm thinking about doing something similar in the future.
Yeah, it's not tough. I mean, basically you need to have both parents on board quite a bit. I mean, I can't do it. That's another reason why circumstances are going to have to change. I'm going to actually start putting my elder daughters into school because they're going to get ready to do GCSEs and stuff like that. So I don't have just the time to do as much with them. Also, one of my daughters is dyslexic, so that took a huge that takes a lot of effort, right, to try to work with a dyslexic child. But generally, I absolutely can 100% recommend homeschooling. Kids just learn a lot. You can give them much more time than a teacher can, as long as you can teach. I mean, you have to be able to teach, right? Some parents don't have the patience to be able to teach even their own children.
Definitely.
So as long as you have the patience for it, kids learn much better from their own parents. You can give them some real undivided attention, right? It's not like a teacher in school where they try as best they can, but really, education in the school environment is sort of like a factory process. It's about trying to do as much as you can quickly, right? So a child is not going to get even like 10 minutes of quality time with a teacher. You never even get that as a student, right, in school. Not really.
I agree.
Not on a regular, right? Whereas you as a parent, you can do that, and 1 hour of homeschooling is worth 6 hours in school.
Oh,
and
wow.
Also, you can also let them follow their interests a lot more. One of the bad things about school is that it breaks the interest cycle. So like 45 minutes of maths, 45 minutes of this English or whatever it is, right? And the issue is that sometimes it takes a kid a while to get into a subject, right? And just when you've started sort of like interested to get into it, your mind is on it. It's like the bell goes. You have to break your mind from that topic and straight away put it into gear for a different topic. And that's just not how we naturally learn, right? Kids naturally learn things, and we naturally learn things. We go deep into things, right? You see how adults now, they go into rabbit holes we talk about, right? They will get into a topic and then they go deep into it and go into the different branches and related fields, and you can spend a long time on just one topic, finding out everything about it. Naturally, nobody learns by, okay, I'll do a little bit here of this and then stop and then a little bit here and then stop, a little bit and stop, and it just fractures the mind. It reduces your attention, your ability to focus on one topic for a long period of time. Anyway, I could go on about this. I mean, I was a big proponent of homeschooling before even the COVID and stuff like that. But when that happened, and a lot of things became distance learning, that's when we changed completely to homeschooling for all of our kids. Before that, I was only homeschooling my dyslexic child, and then the other was in school.
Oh wow. I mean, I agree. Like, I think school lacks a lot of intellectual freedom, and you don't tend to grow. I mean, it's like you said, it's like kind of like a factory level, producing these kind of same level mind.
If you want to read into it a bit, I highly recommend John Taylor Gatto.
Okay.
He's got a number of excellent books.
What book do you recommend?
There's one which is called Weapons of Mass Instruction. Very easy title.
That's a good game. Good name.
Very easy title to remember. Weapons of Mass Instruction. You have Dumbing Us Down, and then you have it's a very big one, but the underground history of the American education system. I think it's called or the secondary education system. I'm not sure, but look up his books. And he has some amazing lectures on YouTube as well. He was actually one of the he won state teacher of the year, or best teacher in the year, in his state or something, 4 years or 5 years running in America or something. So he was actually John Taylor Gatto. I'll put it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So he was actually himself an amazing teacher, and he used to spend a lot of time. He eventually ended up spending a lot of time trying to subvert the education system, like finding excuses for kids to be out of school and doing something, when they're actually there. He would like to. He would actually try to find it. He'd have inspectors come to his class sometimes, and only a quarter of the students would be there, and he'd have to find reasons to say, he'd make up stuff, but the kids would be out doing real stuff and learning real stuff, but he'd have to find a way to sort of incorporate it, and then he said he gave up teaching because he didn't want to hurt children anymore.
Oh wow, that's deep. I mean, I wish I had a teacher like that growing up, because most of my teachers were just following a curriculum and very robotic.
And there's a huge high turnover of teachers. I mean, even now, so many teachers are quitting. They're underpaid. There's too much bureaucracy, too much red tape, right? And it's expected of them, which are just not reasonable, to be honest.
I agree.
And the expectations have become different now. It's like if a student is doing badly, it's always blamed on the teacher, right?
Yeah.
And rather than you have those memes, right, where they have a picture of a cartoon picture of 60 years ago. You'd have the kid in the teacher parent conference, and the parent would be holding up the grades and showing them to their child, explain this, right? And the child would be a bit scared. And now the picture is that they're holding up the paper of the child failing, and shoving it in the face of the teacher, telling them to explain this while the child sits smugly behind.
Yeah, I seen the image before, and it's quite deep actually. Yeah, it's true actually. Nowadays, teachers are becoming sort of a scapegoat.
Yeah. And it doesn't help because then, like I said, the turnover of people going to teaching and then they leave very quickly usually, because it's very difficult. It's not easy 100%. At all. And now I think personally, one of the biggest issues, of course, is technology. One of the best advice to you is keep your kids away from any tablets, iPhones, whatever it is. Really is damaging, especially in education.
I would say it's a double-edged sword, because technology does help. I mean, the way I see it is it's a tool. You can use it for the good, or
we think that is the case, but the data is out. It's just not. It's not about how we're using them. The human brain is just not made to be learning from screens. And that's not how we're made. and it's shown that. I mean, there's been studies now across 80 countries, right?
Yeah.
Long studies all across 80 countries, and in every single case, the trend is the same. That
Oh,
in
really?
every case, yeah, that in every area, in every part of the world where this was studied, the kids are doing better. Yeah, generation upon generation, the kids are doing better than their parents. And then once technology is introduced, and it doesn't matter how it's being used, as soon as
Mm.
it's introduced, that increase in cognition starts to plateau and then decrease. Okay, it
Wait, so
plateaus.
it doesn't matter on the age, you
It
say?
doesn't matter. No, I mean that
Like, oh.
it's yeah, it's basically in general cognition, everything. So the idea is our kids are less cognitively able
Yeah.
than we were at their age, right?
I think you make a
Cognitive
good
IQ,
point. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, when I look, when I observe my family members who grew up with technology compared to those who, back home in third world countries, for example,
yeah,
who haven't got received any kind of technology, I
yeah.
can see like a stark difference in both of them, how they think.
Huge, yeah, huge.
It's massive.
Also, anxiety is bigger
Oh
because
yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
There's a huge amount of anxiety being made by these phones and these. It's wild. It really is wild. There's a nice documentary to see. And it's on YouTube as well. It's called The Social Dilemma. I'd highly recommend you watch that.
I'll check it out.
But it's just very destructive. So that's
Mm.
the first thing before anything else. I mean, just that alone, removing any technology from, and the problem is the schools give it now, like I said.
Mm.
But removing any technology will give your kids a head start above so many kids now. Just
Yeah,
that alone.
yeah,
And
100%.
then never mind now the AI has come. I mean, now, my God, even in the US, the UK, everywhere, kids are using Gemini and ChatGPT to do 100% of their homework. Right? They
Yeah,
just take
yeah.
a maths worksheet, take a picture of it, upload it onto thing, and it will solve it with all the steps, and then you just copy that
Mm.
down.
It does the thinking for you, right?
Yeah,
So it's like you're not really thinking at all.
it's wrecking things, and I really think the education system is not adapting fast enough. Right.
Mm.
A
Yeah.
good thing I heard, my wife told me this. I haven't seen it, but she said that in the UK they're banning social media for kids below 16. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yeah. Keir Starmer passed, or is about to pass a bill. No, I think
That's
he's already passed it. Because it was on the news where it was a journalist, sort of like interviewing, secondary school kids, and they were saying like, how do you feel about this ban? And the kids like look so nonchalant in their answers, like they didn't like it. But
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I think the thing is, I
They
think it's a good thing in
understand.
a way.
I
Yeah,
think kids understand how bad it is. Like they
yeah,
don't like it. It's like somebody who's having like addictive substances being banned for them. They're
yeah.
not happy about it, right? But again, they are happy about it at the same time. They know, okay,
Mm.
this will be a better
The
thing.
thing is, they don't know what's good for them. The thing is, social media is a toxic pit of comparison and anxiety and depression. Like
Yeah,
you're constantly, when you're scrolling, you're constantly like comparing yourself to this
yeah.
person's life,
Yeah,
who's probably just
especially for young girls, it's a huge
exactly, because a
so
lot
I
of the
mean, it's a
lives that they
brilliant
post
thing.
is not realistic.
It's a
Yeah.
brilliant thing. I mean, I'm glad it's happened. But to be honest, when I heard about it, you know what my first thought was,
Well,
right? I thought, okay, I know why they've done this. They've done this because of the generation divide on Israel. Because
yeah.
you know that's the real reason that
Hmm.
this is happening, right? And because I saw in the weeks leading up to it, I
Yeah.
saw how a lot of people were talking about. There were a lot of like you know people saying about how we need to control the social media. Our kids are not listening to us anymore. Like Zionists are saying this. They're saying, my kid, I can't speak to my kids anymore. I sound like a monster
Oh
to them
wow,
when I yeah, like Zionists are saying this about their own kids because
that's so funny.
because the media has gone to them already, through social media. They see what's happening to
Mm,
Israel, and they took the message of the Holocaust and things properly. They understand, that the images of the Holocaust were like skinny, Jewish
mm,
people being oppressed by Nazis, and
yeah.
now they see the images of skinny, Palestinians being oppressed by, this the Israeli army, and they think, okay, I know who I'm supposed to support. And they're saying, no, and we try to give them the fact, the Zionists say, we try to give our kids the fact that we can't get through to them because, social media has shaped their perceptions. So I think it's probably because of that. I don't think it's because they actually care about Keir Starmer doesn't care about the social media.
No, he definitely doesn't. Because they could have done it ages ago.
Yeah, they could have done it ages ago. This has been known for a long time.
Yeah, it is funny. I actually had a question.
Yeah, sorry, we got diverted.
So I got a bit going on a tangent, but I wanted to ask a question about how do I put this? It's like, so my background, I've said it before, but just to remind you, like I came from like a very Salafi background, and then I moved away from it. To be honest, you were actually part of that help that I needed. You and Mufti Abu Layth. Sad thing what happened to him, by the way, with
very, very
Muhammad
sad,
Hijab, and when I think he got terrorized, his house got vandalized and stuff. But his attitude changed since then. But anyway, like you guys really helped me on this journey that I was on, and I looked at history and tashayyu as well as other things. But one of the things I'm trying to move past is constantly thinking what's halal and what's haram, or what's permissible or impermissible. Because back when I was a Salafi, I used to think every little thing, every little detail, is this okay to do? Is this not okay to do? Is this haram, halal? Looking at fatwas of certain scholars. It was funny because today someone asked what's his name, Fawzan, one of the Saudi scholars, about some of the football players. They would like prostrate after scoring a goal, right? And he was saying, they were asking if it was permissible, and he was saying like, no, this is not permissible, and this is just for showing off. It's not allowed to do. And the speaker was saying, the person who asked the question said, but what if it's inviting, like it's da'wah, like they see this and they might be intrigued. He's like, no, this is not da'wah. And it was just like, for me, it was just really funny. It's like some frustration, saying it's not permissible. But like the idea is like these looking at these Salafis, like thinking every little detail is
you have to answer every question that comes your way.
Answer every question. And I think like I've kind of moved past it, but at the same time, because like I've become more Quran focused or Quran centric, I'm doing less of that now. But in the back of my head, I still have this.
It still lingers. It
lingers. Like the other day, my wife was taking a pill and it had like beef gelatin in it. So then she like started going on Gemini, asking if it's halal. Gemini said it was like fine, like was it istihal or something. So now like every little thing she's going on Gemini, or I'm going on Gemini.
There you go, right? That's us as well. I make a constant like a conscious effort to try to avoid it. But the problem, even when you put in a search engine, you search for something normally. Now the first thing that comes out is the AI answer.
It's the Gemini,
Don't give me the AI answer. I want to actually even trying to like avoid it. It's just shoved in your face.
But it's just something like that. It's hard to get out of.
It is.
How like just taking from a Quran, like from your perspective at least, like how do you move away from that, or how can we use our aql or our fitra, or using the Quran logic to sort of move past that?
I don't know. I mean, because what you're talking about is more sort of like psychological, I suppose, because it's something where you just have to sort of like, I guess, time heals all wounds, as they say, and slowly these sort of things start to become. And again, sometimes just seeing the ridiculous way those things play out helps as well. Quranically, I mean, the key thing to remember is that both the halal and the haram, both of them are the prerogatives of Allah, right? So when Allah talks in the Quran, it says, لا تقولوا لما تصف ألسنتكم الكذب هذا
Yeah.
halal وهذا haram. So you're
Yeah.
not supposed to say that something is halal or
Yeah.
something is haram. So
I remember you posted a comment about this on Reddit. Like we
Yeah.
don't reserve that right for ourselves. It's only for Allah to say.
Yeah, exactly,
something is either
exactly.
halal or
So,
haram.
so when you put it in this way, one of the things, just take it out of your vocabulary, right? No longer, like, even if you start mentally asking yourself inside if that urge to ask is halal or haram, don't say, start to change mentally those words, right? Don't say, don't think to yourself halal, haram, permissible, not permissible. Think is this is a good thing to do or a bad thing. You can put it like that. So change the words a little bit. So have it sort of like being at something at a lower level, right? So have this idea that the halal and haram are at the highest level, and there are things which are categories for God alone, right? And it's only the things which He has said which go into those categories, and below that it's more fluid, right? You can think of it sort of that way. Below that, that's some things which today might be good to do, then later on might not be good to do, right? That you shouldn't. So just sort of that sort of mental shift to understand, to raise the bar for halal and haram, right, and lower what everybody else is thinking about as just something that's just try us doing our best to try to live in the best way. Right?
What about for like those nuances, like food, for example? If like McDonald's beef burger, like would you like that's nothing good or bad, but it's just like would you say that doing something like that, eating a burger from McDonald's would be
Yeah, I mean, well, that I think personally in the Quran is pretty. I mean, it's pretty clear because the Quran talks about not eating from that which Allah's name has not been mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So I really think that when it comes to like slaughtering something, to eat it, right, to eat like something other, then it has to be done in the name of Allah. You have to mention Allah's name over it. Okay. So those, they're not principle. And there's lots of halal options and stuff in the thing, and on top, never mind the whole issue of McDonald's and Zionist links and Israel support and all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes to the actual like meat and these sort of things, I think it is. I know that because what happened is that in the when Muslims first arrived to the UK, sort of like the early thing, the idea was that they'd come to like a Christian country, right? And so the food their food is halal for us and the rest of it. But really the idea about that is, of course, that what is meant by that is sort of like the Jewish kosher, right? Because the Christians are supposed to be following those laws as well, right? The Quran talks about how يا أهل الكتاب لستم على شيء حتى تقيموا التوراة والإنجيل وما أنزل إليكم من ربكم. Or people of the scripture, you are upon nothing until you establish the Torah and the Injil and what was sent down to you. So it's only in what they've established from their deen, right, that their food is halal. Okay, so that includes those kind of laws. Right. So if when the verse says you are upon nothing until you establish that, so a lot of the Christians, they don't establish the Torah. They completely ignore the Torah. In fact, right? They just have the idea of the law is abolished and the rest of it. Okay, so they don't really. They're not going to be included in that their food is halal because they're not actually practicing their deen when it comes to their food, right? Generally Christians, but the Jews are, they actually do. They actually have their own, they have the kosher food that's actually done, according to Islamic standards in many ways. I mean, they've of course they've put in other conditions there, right? They've made it sort of, it must be a rabbi who is this or whatever who slaughters, otherwise it's not halal, right? But the actual original scripture for them, how a food would be halal for them. Right now, in actual fact, halal, they do not eat halal, right?
So they can only eat kosher.
They can only eat kosher. right? The reason why, and it's just a monopoly. So it's like a classic sort of like idea of like a monopoly that Jews will make. So they added to the law, which of course is not going to be part of God's original law, that the person who slaughters must be Jewish, right? So that's why they can't the halal food is not kosher for them for only one reason, right? That the person who's slaughtering it is a Muslim, is a Muslim and not a Jew. That's it. Otherwise, it would be. So yeah, go ahead.
I remember there was a I think it was a Christian or someone who converted to Islam, and I remember you made a comment saying like it would have been better if he stayed a Christian and follow like his tenets and stuff. It would have been easier because and I think you were right, because the next thing you said was like, as if I remember correctly, you said how Muslims can be quite controlling. I know how like in the Dawah scene what they would do is they would just use the Qur'an to sort of reel people in first, and then they start adding the hadith and then start controlling. Once they convert, they start controlling them and etc., and lead them down the sort of Salafi pathway. And then the fatwas and the scholars and all that, you have to obey them rather than following the Quran. But I found it really interesting how you said like for them to just stay as a Christian. But won't that like sort of in the hereafter, for example, won't they be sort of won't it lead them down to Jahannam, or have I got the wrong idea on this?
Well, I mean, I don't remember that particular thing, but the idea that I can mention now is that you have, when you say remain a Christian, it means remain on the shira and minhaja of the Christians, right? Because like in that verse again, Allah talks about how it's every people we have given a shira and minhaja, and if Allah had wanted, He would have made you all one people, right? If Allah had wanted, He would have made us all one ummah, the same shira, the same minhaj, right? So it doesn't mean by somebody like if I would advise somebody to stay a Christian, it wouldn't mean by that rejecting the Quran or rejecting that the Prophet Muhammad was a prophet or any of these things. It would mean mostly you can stay as a Christian in terms of actually start practicing Christianity properly, using what the Quran has, because one of the functions of the Quran is to make clear to Ahlul Kitab the things which they had differed in, the things which they had gotten wrong. So you can use the Quran to correct what you have in Christianity and then continue in your Christianity. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Because I think Allah does clear something in the Quran about Christianity, saying like how they can declare Isa alayhi salam as a god, and if they have done that, something the skies would be ripped apart.
I mean, I mentioned it in this thing. I mentioned it in this stream as well, right? But so the idea is that they would, and you have some who are like that, by the way. There are very few, but you have Christians who are like that. I remember that, what's his name? German guy, theologian. He was a Catholic cardinal, and then he got excommunicated from the Catholic Church because he said that Muhammad was a genuine prophet, a messenger from God, that the Quran was actual revelation from God, that the Trinity is wrong, right? That it's just wrong, and basically but he's still a Christian, right? He still goes to mass, he still does everything else is the same pretty much as Christianity, and he's basically just taken. I mean, I don't know if that's how he set out to do it, right? But he was convinced. Maybe he was convinced by the Quranic argument, maybe not. I mean, he's convinced enough of the Quran being divine, so I'm pretty sure he does accept it. But he said that it basically has all of the things which the Quran corrects about Christianity, he's taken aboard, and then he's continued in this Christianity.
If somebody
does that, like you said, he won't have the baggage of having converted to Islam and have a bunch of Muslims telling him, "No, you're doing Islam the wrong way."
Yeah,
right. You have to do it our way.
Yeah, but because Islam is like the final religion that Allah has perfected, wouldn't it make sense to convert or follow?
Yeah, it would. But I mean, it depends, because let's say, for example, I mean, if you've been put yourself in his shoes, right? You've been a Catholic cardinal, all your life, you're like 60 something years old, right? Um, what affects your heart spiritually is everything which is related to Christianity. This, it's very alien to you. It's like, trying to teach an old dog new tricks. Okay, imagine
Yeah.
at 63 you have to learn to pray and feel like, even now, as Muslims who have prayed all their life, they're struggling to feel something in their prayer, to actually have a connection in their prayer.
That's a
Right?
good point.
He
Yeah.
already has that in how he prays, and now you're asking him to abolish that and pray the way the Arabian prophet taught the Arabs to pray. Right, something which is very alien to him, right? To get down on his knees and then bow, and maybe he's never knelt with his knees in the last 40 years. It'll probably damage his knees by this time, right? Go down, and then try to sit there painfully. That people struggle, in some of the postures of the prayer when they get older.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there, in sajda and trying to actually. It's not something which he might be used to, right? And why should he, right? Why can't he just amend his prayer to do it the way have the Christian prayer, but amend it? I mean, the Lord's prayer, it's a perfectly acceptable, prayer in terms of Islam, right? And there are many prayers which are like that, and he can go to his congregation and sing the psalms in the church
Yeah.
and all of it. There's a lot of things which are there. And the Quran doesn't say that, right? I mean, the kalima sawa in the Quran says, "O people of the book, come to a word which is common between us," right? It doesn't say you have to convert even. Yes, somebody like him who has accepted the prophethood of Muhammad, he has done more than the kalima sawa. The kalima sawa doesn't even include accepting the prophet Muhammad as a prophet. Yes, somebody who has accepted him as a prophet has done even more than that, right? So. And again, the main thing is that, again, going back to that verse, it's a very key verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, right? Where Allah says that, now, and then we revealed the book to you, O Muhammad, confirming the scripture before it, and as a guardian over it, right? وَمُهَيْمِنًا عَلَيْهِ. And then it says, and to each people we have given their own shir'an minhaj. And if Allah had willed, He would have made you all one people. What does that mean? If Allah had willed, it means it's not His will that everybody should be on the same deen. Even with Islam being the last and the final, etc., Allah doesn't want that, to everybody be the same religion, one world religion. Okay, and that's not what Allah wants. He deliberately sent different shir'ah minhaja to different people, and then He says, and there's probably wisdom in why each one is different and different in the long run for these different peoples. Maybe that it's more, acclimed to their to what they will be, or to their eventual cultures, or whatever it is. Who knows, right? We have like this sort of God level view of the span of humanity. But in the end, what we're supposed to do, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, right? The verse just says, so race each other towards goodness. So a Muslim, a Christian who can race ahead of a Muslim with their Christianity than a Muslim with his Islam. That's possible, right? It's about how much effort you put into it, right? Istabaqul khairat means race each other to goodness. It doesn't matter which religion you are when the race is towards goodness. Okay, whoever gets there first wins, right? So that's the idea. I mean, you can.
How would you respond to someone who says that only people of the book will be eligible to enter Jannah? Because Allah says those who can enter Jannah are those who believe. That was the key word, those who believe and to do good. And every verse, or most verses say, it always has that key phrase, which is those who believe and do good.
Yeah, I mean that.
So who qualifies for like that sort of criteria? Because they say only people of the book, which is Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
Yeah, I mean, well, the verse which says like إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى, like that verse, right? Truly, those who have faith, and the Jews and the Christians, and Sabi'ina. It says, "Man amana billahi wal yawmil," and it says, whoever has faith in God in the last day, right? So that's another category which is basically more universal even than the others, right? So you have the الذين آمنوا, who are the Muslims. إن الذين آمنوا means who? Means the Muslims. Just like An-Nasara means the Christians, and the Yehud means the Jews. So it's talking about these religious groups, okay? And it's just mentioning them because they are the key ones which are mentioned in that region. It's not because God is ignorant of Buddhism or Hinduism or all of these other things, right? It's just because this part that this the Prophet Muhammad is from the descendants of Abraham. This was a covenant given to Ibrahim. Through him, we were named Muslims, and we're supposed to be shuhada to the rest of the world, etc. So the story is more centered around that region. Okay, that doesn't mean it can't be global. Okay, but the idea when those categories, those religions are mentioned, they're just mentioned among others, and then at the end, that's why it mentions man amana billahi wal yawm, anybody. So anybody else who has faith in God and the last day and does good deeds, right? So they can be included. So basically, any religion, and that's what that means. Not just any person. It means just like you have the Jews, they have faith in Allah in the last day and can do good deeds and can do good deeds, right? The Christians, they have faith in Allah last day and can do good deeds, and the and the Muslims have faith in Allah and the last day and can do good deeds. So that last part when it says man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir doesn't mean about individuals. It means any religious group anywhere in the world who has faith in God and the last day and does good deeds, they're included. Okay.
Would that even include like paganism, like Hindus or those who worship like the Norse gods in Norway? Because that God isn't the same as Allah, right?
Yeah, no, of course not, right? I mean, I don't know, to be honest. if I'm honest about, I don't know anything about those which I can actually count upon to be real. I've actually wanted to do like talks of pagans on this channel because there's been this resurgence of pagans and Wiccans and witches.
Yeah,
right?
especially
so why not one day invite an actual pagan onto the channel so we can talk. And I was thinking that maybe this will allow people to see the difference between what is actual, a pagan and a mushrik, right? Because or a polytheist and a mushrik, because I do think they are different. So when it comes to those, I don't know much about them, but one thing when it says here, "Man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir," who has faith in God in the last day, it doesn't exclude. That doesn't exclude. I know people generally think it does, but it doesn't exclude believing in other gods, right? It just says, well, you can have faith in Allah and then also have faith in some other gods as well, right? But if you have faith that Allah is going to be He is the supreme Lord, right? Or He is going to be the one who will be judging everybody. There's going to be a day of judgment where everybody will be requited for the good and the bad that they've done, right? That kind of like bare bones thing is enough in itself, right? To have this idea that that God exists, right, and that there will be a day of judgment where we will be judged for our deeds, right, and on the consequence of that, we do good deeds in this world. That is enough sort of to gain salvation as a category, again, because on the individual level, everybody is judged according to their deeds, not their religion, right? So even when we talk about like that verse which says, truly those who have faith, and the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, whoever does good, and whoever has faith in God and the last day and does good deeds, for them is the reward of their Lord, and there will be no grief upon them. The idea that generally means salvation, even though it doesn't say they go to Jannah, right? It doesn't actually say that explicitly, but the idea is, of course, their salvation, that they're not going to be saddened by that. Ultimately they're going to be happy, right?
Does this apply to like those who don't believe in God, like atheists or agnostics who may believe there's
no? I mean, those verses are specifically talking about the groups of religions, right? So it's talking about like religiosity and stuff like that. I think the Quran doesn't speak at all pretty much about atheists or agnostics or anything like that. The Quran assumes belief in God, right? There's no, like the kuffar, all the kuffar in the Quran believe in God, right? Every mushrik in the Quran is portrayed as believing in God, right? Even recent evidence of the inscriptions in Arabia over the past like 500 years, they've shown that there was a shift in the last 200 years before Islam, around that time, where all of the invocation to other than Allah died out, and there was only the invocation to Allah alone, right? So this will actually be shown in the rock inscriptions. So the Arabs in the time of the Prophet, they all believed in God, right? So the Quran doesn't actually discuss atheists pretty much at all, right? The closest person to an atheist in the Quran, or agnostic really, is Fir'aun, right? When he says, I do not know of any other God for you except myself. And he says to Haman, build me a ladder so I can, go up to the sky and take a peek at the God of Musa, but I think he is lying. Shows a kind of agnosticism towards God, right? But that's about it. I don't see anybody else in the Quran being portrayed as not believing in God's existence.
Makes sense.
That's part of the evidence which is being in the Quran. The arguments of the Quran, a lot of them are, the Meccans being asked, who is the Lord of the seven heavens and the earth, and who, has dominion, who brings life and death, all of these things, and they all say Allah, right? And so that's part of the argument against them, is that you guys believe the right thing, right? That's why you have, for example, the whole Ibn Taymiyyah thing, right, where he said they had Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, right? He called that a kind of Tawheed. And what they missed was Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, right? So they all had this belief, they all had this belief in God, right? The person, the king at the time of Ibrahim, right, when he was asked, when he argued with Ibrahim, he said, my Lord is one who brings life and death. He says, me also, I bring life and death. He didn't say, your Lord doesn't exist, right? Then he said, God brings the sun out from the east, so bring it out from the west. فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. So then he was silenced, right? Because he recognized Allah, right? He didn't reject Allah. He's putting himself up there as well. I have power as well.
Okay.
So, but to get back to your point, right? So you're asking as well about the verses you say, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ, for them is Jannah, and إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, for them is hellfire. So that phraseology in the Quran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, just means the Muslims who do good deeds. That's what is this. This is part of the bushra towards the Muslims, the followers of the Prophet Muhammad. Those verses are really just saying, you Muslims, truly you Muslims who do good deeds, you'll be in Jannah. But that is not an exclusive statement. It's not saying that nobody else apart from you will be in Jannah, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
It's just saying that those who have faith and do good deeds will be in Jannah. And aside from that, you have all of these other verses in the Quran which do not make faith or iman in Allah to be a requirement at all. So, one of my favorite ones is تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا. It says, this is the abode of the hereafter. We make it for those who do not want elevation on the earth nor corruption. That's it. Right? The God will give the abode of the hereafter, Jannah, right, to those who do not want this kind of arrogance and elevation. This comes at the end of the story of Qarun. I mentioned it in the last stream.
I'll listen to that one.
Yeah, so they do not want elevation upon the earth, no fasad. They don't want any corruption. They're not about that, right?
What verse is that?
Let me see. وَلَا فَسَادَ. It's Surah 28, so Surah Al-Qasas 28, verse 83 to 84, because the next one matters as well. The next verse says, مَنْ جَاءَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ فَلَهُ خَيْرٌ مِنْهَا. Whoever comes with a good deed will have better in it. وَمَنْ جَاءَ بِالسَّيِّئَةِ فَلَا يُجْزَى الَّذِينَ عَمِلُوا السَّيِّئَاتِ إِلَّا مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And whoever does evil, then those who do evil will not be recompensed except for what they used to do. right? So these two verses together, they're very clear that what matters is salvation is dependent upon your deeds, which is what throughout the Quran is mentioned. There's never a single verse in the Quran which says enter Jannah because of your faith, because of what you used to believe. It's always because of what you used to do. Right?
Yeah.
ادخلوا الجنة بما كنتم تعملون, because of what you used to do. If there's any one quality, which is who are the saved people, it's not the people of Iman, of faith, it's the people of taqwa. Right? Like the Quran says, تلك الجنة نورث من عبادنا من كان تقيا. This is a Jannah we cause to inherit from our servants whoever has taqwa. Right? Not whoever has Iman. It's not whoever has Iman. من كان تقيا, not من كان مؤمنا. Right? It's not whoever was a believer, it's whoever was a person of taqwa. So, and that's throughout the Quran. إن للمتقين مفازة للمتقين جنات وعيون. Right? It's mentioned throughout the Quran that Jannah is for the people of taqwa. It's for taqwa. Right? Conversely, throughout the Quran, it's always enter Jannah or enter hell because of what you used to do. Right? So faith is important. Iman is important because it's almost like, I mean, how are you able to do good deeds in this world if you don't have some degree of faith? I mean, even just general faith, never mind, not even faith in God, because a lot of the verses when they talk about Iman, they're not even saying Iman billah. It says inna alladhina amanu, those who had faith and do good deeds. Right? Doesn't even say faith in Allah. Right? The verses which say alladhina amanu billah are very few. Those who had faith in Allah, very few. Sometimes it's just a general idea of faith, this idea that you have this Iman, okay? This trust.
Like, what would you say faith in?
Yeah, faith is this kind of like trust, right? It can be, of course, this kind of faith in Iman in Allah is the biggest thing. And Iman in Allah and the Yawm al-Akhir and the angels, and there's that sort of faith, that kind of like religious faith, let's say. But then there's also just, you can have that general faith of of goodness for its own self, that the good is worth doing for its own sake, that the good will be recompensed in the end, right? This kind of idea of almost like this kind of like trust and a kind of like a karma, right? That have if you don't have any faith at all, you just will not do a good deed, right? You need to have faith, which gives you kind of some sort of hope for the future, right? If you don't have faith, not give like a poor person a penny on the street, right? When you give it to him, even if you don't believe in God or the hereafter, anything, you give it with some sort of faith that it's going to help him, right? If you're doing it out of like a good deed, you're doing it with a sense of faith and trust and Iman that it's going to benefit, that there's going to be a good end to it. Okay, so even just that kind of faith is a faith, right? Is an Iman.
I really like how you break things down. I listen to your Qur'anic like Caravan, Qur'anic every time when I go to work. I'll listen to all of your thing, and I love the way you break things down. It makes it very like digestible. I think the best one was when you broke down the definition of shirk. I think it was so amazing because it completely changed my perspective on shirk and what it actually is, rather than the sort of like mainstream view, which is associating partners with Allah. But you really go deep into it and say no, like it's actually more than that. It's it's like what would you say, like serving another master. And I think I remember once you gave the analogy of a general, and if he orders you to go to another country and kill other people, like that's shirk as well. And I think the way sort of certain scholars have diluted the meaning of shirk to be boiled down to just associating partners with Allah means that they can get away with doing the actual shirk, which is controlling the masses and getting them to bend to the thing, which actually the Quran even warns, saying how we take monks or scholars as our lords instead of Allah, which really like it made so much sense when you really defined shirk and how deep it can actually go. I was just wondering if there's anything else as well like that in the Quran that so I can look into, or you can help me look into. I think there was another one which was ibadah. Another word which was ibadah. another one was shirk. But I'm just wondering, is there anything else?
In terms of like the actual the Quranic like sort of like terminology or the
Exactly.
main,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I think. Yeah. Like so.
yeah,
Because sometimes you can't really find a definition or something
yeah,
that can translate these Arabic words into
mm,
English properly. It
yeah.
can go into so much more deeper. So I'm just wondering if there's any other words
I do have
or
a post. Maybe I should actually do a stream on it. I don't know if I did it, but the Big Five, I called them, not the Big Five, Big Ten, I think I called them.
yeah.
So there's these I'd call them the Big Ten, I
Mm.
think.
I remember in
Yeah,
one
the big five
caravan
or
you said
big
big
seven,
five.
yeah, of the
Yeah.
Quranic terminology. So I
Mm.
did one. I have a post about them. I can try and post the link if you want. But yeah,
Please.
the terms were, I said that there are these terms which are important really to understand Quranically. Which if you don't really understand Quranically, you're not going to understand the Quran to any level of depth, right? So
Mm.
kufr one of them, iman another,
Kufr, yes.
shirk, ibadah, taqwa, dua. These are sort of like the most important ones, I think, right? But then you have others, ilah. You have to understand what that really means. Ilah,
Mm.
nifaq, ijram, sort of mujrim and mujrimeen, very important in the Quran. Dhikr and fisq, also very important, right?
And
Um,
fisk.
yeah, so these ones are really really important to know what they are. And I made a post where I put the definitions on them on Reddit. Let me see if I can pull that out
Oh,
now.
I would love to see that. I follow you on everywhere, by the way, on Twitter and Reddit
Yeah.
and YouTube.
All right, brilliant.
I'm
Let me
just
see.
wondering, like, how did you in the beginning like to even think about this or to break it down? Just finding these words and because I think you said it once, like you can't really translate these Arabic words into English. Like
Yeah, I mean, some
it
of
doesn't
them
make
it's just difficult to do. It's like trying to translate love. I mean, almost every language has a word for love, right? So it's a pretty easy translation.
sense.
But imagine trying to like define love. It's not easy, right? Because they're such big words, right? They're almost like I give the analogy of them being sort of three dimensional, right? It's
Mm.
like they're not linear in that sort of way. They're almost three dimensional. So if you look at a house from the front, you can describe it, and you can describe the same house from the back, and you're describing a completely different aspect to it, but it's the same house.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can have these ideas, or these concepts, which are sort of like three dimensional, and because higher concepts are like that, right? Higher concepts are going to be they're going to have more than one aspect to them, but they will have a core. They still have a reality. Okay, just
Mm.
because it's difficult to define love doesn't mean it's not real, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, I mean, when it comes to the thing about it, I mean, one of the excellent books to read is by Izutsu, right? So ethical religious terms in the Quran, a fantastic book to read. I mean, this guy was a master linguist.
Yeah.
He knew over 30 languages fluently,
Yeah.
and it's the if I was whenever I advise anybody, if there's one book I advise you to read to be able to help you understand the Quran, what's that book, right? Just because
Ethics
it
of
goes,
is it-
it's called Ethical Religious Concepts in the Quran. Let me put it in the chat.
does he also have the same view of shirk as you, or is
I
that what
don't think
you?
he got. Unfortunately, I don't think he actually goes into
Mm.
shirk. Right? He doesn't actually talk about shirk as much. He talks about kufr. Right? He talks about some other Quranic terminology. There's some key ones which he doesn't go into, I think. Um, but I guess he just put in what he had thought about. Ethical, religious concepts in the Quran by Izit. And he has also a number of other books, God and Man in the Quran. But I highly recommend that because what he does is he uses the what's called semantic methodology, which is to try to understand the word in the Quran from its own semantic field. And you can do that with these key terms, like the key terms which come over again and again in the Quran. You can do that because such key words in the Quran, of course, Quran is using it in its own way. I mean, he even notes that Iman and Mu'min is virtually a creation of the Quran. It didn't exist before the Quran. Like the Arabs did not use the word Mu'min.
Okay.
It didn't
Interesting.
exist. So, and when it comes to shirk, it was not used before the Quran in that religious kind of way.
So how would they know the meaning? Like, how did they know what it meant when it was revealed?
I mean, for example, when it comes to shirk, it came very late, right, in the Quran. I mean, the earliest surahs in the Quran, they don't mention shirk at all.
Oh wow!
Right, the very earliest surahs, they don't have they don't mention even the root of shirk. There's nothing about shirk or mushrik or anything like that, right? In the earliest surahs of the Quran, it's completely absent, right? It comes later, which again it shows you something about shirk. Shirk, it's not something you can somebody who isn't being shown the right ibadah towards Allah, right? It's not just like something you can come and straight away charge somebody with shirk. Okay, shirk is when you've shown yourself to be in actual ibadah to others with Allah, right? When you start to see that this is what Allah wants, but you are still serving this other master, this other person, then now you can start to talk about the person having shirk.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So the thing is, the earlier surahs, they mention a lot more the mujrimeen, right? Of course, kufr is in there. They mention the kuffar, so that's early on, and that's another indication of what shirk is. Like I've given this rule of thumb that shirk is ibadah to kufr, right? So the kufr is already there first, and then the shirk starts to appear as people start to be in ibadah to kufr, as opposed to Allah when it's shown that this is kufr, right? So when you start to see the difference between, you start to see this is kufr and this over here is not kufr, but you are still in ibadah to the kufr, that's when again shirk is, you're starting to enter into shirk. Right? So it's definitely.
I'll definitely look into that.
I recommend that book highly. I recommend that book.
Amazing. Yeah. Lastly, I'll end off with if you've seen the latest Twitter beef with Mohammed Hijab and Adnan Rashid.
I did not, to be honest. What do we expect? I mean,
So
what happened?
There was a stream between Mohammed Hijab and Sneeko where Mohammed Hijab was surprisingly defending like the other sects, and he was basically berating Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and how he was like killing basically everyone who he thought was a takfir, and he was like saying like this wasn't good and what he did was really bad. And then a lot of the Twitter scholars, one of them Adnan Rashid, they just jumped on and started like there was a whole beef about it where Mohammed Hijab sort of like exposed Adnan Rashid to be a bootlicker for some of the Arabs, Arab leaders.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and that how he wasn't vocal about Palestine and other Twitter users sort of was defending Mohammed Hijab. Yeah, it got really interesting.
I missed all of that.
Yeah, it is funny. It was quite funny.
Yeah. These things, what can you do? They're happening. I mean, the last thing which I saw that was happening was I posted about it because it was sort of related to somebody actually sent it to me, so I didn't even see it naturally, organically or anything, but it was related to, because I did that stream about mockery, right? The given divine sanction to sort of mockery. And then I think it was the next day or something. That's when who was the best of the da'wah lot? What's his name? Muhammad Ali, the Muslim Lantern.
Yeah.
Right. So he made that video about, which unfortunately I wish he had just separated the issue. Like he did a video where he talks about the issue of the actual da'wah that's happening now. It's all just mockery and dunking on other people, and it's just this kind of. It's not real da'wah, right? Yeah. But then unfortunately, he mixed with that video at the end. He started talking about women in da'wah, and then that's the only thing that anybody's paid attention to, really. From what I see, Is it allowed for women to do da'wah? Is it not allowed? And then just the discussion all became around that. Whereas I think the most important thing, because that's what's affecting both the women who are doing da'wah, these new, what's her name, Itachi, and that's other, these niqabi women now, right? The ninja, the ninja sisters. I don't know. Somebody can invent a term for it, right? They have da'wah bros. So what are they? The da'wah girls? I don't know.
Probably,
but them, right? And that's affecting them and the others, right? Which is that their da'wah is not da'wah. Their da'wah is just all mockery and vilifying and just promoting jahl, right? You're just increasing jahl in other people, and that's not going to lead to them accepting Islam. It's just becomes like you said, it's like trying to win points, score points, mock, belittle the other person, dunk on them. I bodied this person. It's a new word now, bodied, huh? I bodied this person. Lingo is changing, huh?
Yeah. We need to catch up. Did you see that video with that one niqabi against like 20 Christians?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that video?
I mean, I didn't see the whole. I saw little parts of it. I just think it's not helpful. I really think it's just not helpful. I mean, what are you trying to do? You're just trying to what is the purpose of it? It's just trying to, the one who started it all did it in a charming way. Ahmed Didat, right?
Yeah.
I not grew up watching him, but I listened to him. But he was he was like a grandfather kind of person, and he was funny, and his was kind of like a reaction to all the missionaries that was happening in his country.
Right. Yeah.
So the Christian missionaries were going around, the Bible thumpers, this sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so before him, nobody would actually go through studying biblical text and stuff to try and to talk back against Christians and stuff. No, they would just put up with the missionaries and be nice to them and friendly and maybe the pre Ahmed Didat days were better for that, right? Let the Christians they would come into people's homes, try to give us da'wah. We would give them tea and we would talk, and it would there was no harshness or any of this sort of stuff happening.
What do you think about the whole da'wah thing, Islam and da'wah? And
most of it's not da'wah. Most of it's not da'wah. It's supposed to be. Most of it's not da'wah, and what it is, even when it is da'wah, like Muslim Lantern, right? It's da'wah towards a sect within Islam, right? It's not even da'wah towards. You should be given da'wah towards guidance, right? It's not trying to make people believe or this or that, right? The people who come to your streams, and now many that come to this. I mean, mine's like a small thing, but his streams and stuff. So many people come to it, right? When they come. Take the opportunity to try to try to advise them towards some form of guidance, right? Not belief. You have to believe in Islam, and because the problem is he thinks that's guidance, right? No, try to get them to to think more about other people, to do more good deeds, to be asking about their parents. What's your relation with your parents? Are you good to your parents, right? Orphans in your area, are you able to do anything for them? The thing which are happening in the world, different places, are you able to help? Push them towards these sort of things, right? Push them towards actual guidance. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, Quran says, race each other towards goodness, right? Try to encourage people towards goodness, right? Instead, what's happening is you're making people more or less, they come, even if somebody who's very good, like a good, articulate da'wah kind of bro person, right? A Christian comes to him full of zeal. You think, okay, I'm gonna relay it to this Muslim, right? And then he gets, to use their words, destroyed by the Muslim. He goes away from that feeling what? Does he feel more religious? Does he feel like he wants to do something good? Does he want to think about God, or will he go home and sort of
he actually has the opposite reaction.
It takes you away
from
it takes you away, not just more stubborn. Yeah, you can have that. But you can actually have the idea where they become more sort of depressed about the whole religion thing. It's okay, all of this religion is just nonsense. I don't want anything to do with it, right? It's not. If somebody leaves those debates, they're not going to leave and be filled with a desire to pray, to praise God, to be. No, they're going to feel agitated, distressed, right? Not not comfortable in faith, right? They're going to start to doubt, and of course they want that, but they want them to doubt so then they will become Muslim. But and they don't care about the people who doubt and then leave religion altogether, right? And then
Yeah,
not
it does more
become.
harm than good.
And they don't care. They don't care about that. They want people to doubt and then convert. And even after they convert, they just drop them. Like, oh yeah, I got a conversion, and
It's very common. That's very common.
there's an issue of converts who don't get enough support, right? So you make these people convert online, even from on their laptops and stuff. They say the shahada, and then they've definitely got nobody who can help them. Who have they got around them? Now they have to go and like. So it's it's just. That's what I think. I think dawah should be towards. You should think about what is guidance, actual guidance, and give people dawah towards that rather than trying to convert people.
Definitely. Thank you so much for this. It was very insightful, and it was really nice talking to you as well.
No problem. Anytime. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming.
Take care.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalam. All right. That was our bro Silver Fox. All right, I've got two versions of Salman SZ. I'm gonna add one and then ask him about the other. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, muted. Okay, let me add the other one. Assalamu alaikum. This one's working. Hey, wa alaikum assalam. I'm good. So I've got another version of you over here. So I'm gonna remove that version, I suppose, and kick it out of the studio.
I just went from this account.
Sorry, say that again. Yes, go ahead.
My Wi-Fi was not good, so I got removed repeatedly. That's why I guess it showed.
Right. Okay, no problem. No problem. Cool. Okay, so how are you, my friend?
I'm good. It's like 2:30 in the morning for me right now. I'm from Pakistan.
Okay.
I met Nasir a month ago through my Instagram page, and he talked about different things, and he told me about you. He had really good things to say about you. He told me about your YouTube, and today he asked me to join your live. I have been editing your short form videos as well. I did for one video. Now I'll be doing it for 4 others. And I'm 21 years old.
Okay, so that's Abdul Nasir, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I mentioned this near the after my presentation, but again, this is Abdul Nasir here. Again, thank you so much to him and to you now as well. So yes, they both took the initiative to edit some shorts from my videos with just the audio with some text and I think some background music, and they've put it in a Google Drive which they've shared with me, and inshallah we'll be uploading it onto this channel. So thank you so much for that. It was really nice of you, and very well done as well.
Okay, so I'm 21 years old. I'm from Pakistan, and I'm doing bachelor's in AI. And my English is not that good, so all my thoughts are jumbled up, and I don't know what to say and how to.
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's no problem.
I have this Instagram page. I share about Allah's name, etc. Like I share the meaning of Allah's name and then how it can solve the Gen Z problems. Like today, Gen Z have a lot of mental health issues and different and whatnot from the social media. So how they can tackle that, and at the end, I share a personal dua or dua from some ahadith, which can help them in their daily life. So that's how I met Nasir. He DM'd me and we started talking, and yeah, it's been a month now.
All right, brilliant, excellent. If you want, you can share your link. Do you want me to share your link on the chat for your Instagram?
Let me search my Instagram.
Yes, thank you, Abdul Nasir. Jazakallah khair. I'll have to have a look at some of the comments here.
I have shared the link in the chat. That's my Instagram page.
All right.
It's been a month I've started this page, and
Mm.
it was not for views or anything. It was just for like pre-controlled charity that like
Yeah.
do something for my deen.
Yeah, that's nice. It's good. It's good. Excellent. You put it into the chat. I'm trying to find it. Let me see.
Yeah.
I can't find it yet. So you put it in the private chat?
No, I put it in the YouTube
Oh, no, you. Okay, that's fine. Okay. I
chat.
won't be able. I won't be able to see it until the end of the stream, but that's good. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Whereabouts are you from in Pakistan?
I'm from Islamabad.
Islamabad. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Mashallah.
from Islamabad.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love one day to visit Pakistan. I don't know if I ever will do, but I would love to go and visit. I think
You should.
that famous area, it's called the Swan Valley. It's called Swan
Yeah.
Valley. Yeah, it's supposed to be amazingly beautiful. I mean, you have some absolutely stunning places in Pakistan.
Not
I see.
really beautiful, really beautiful.
Yeah. I saw those. I remember watching a few travel. There are people who do travel vlogs, right? And they post them
Yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube. And there was a couple who went viral where people who have moved in their traveling, they went from India to Pakistan, and they would comment how it's like night and day. Like everybody like loved. As soon as they got into Pakistan, they said it was amazing, and they were like, never go back to India, never ever go there, because they just found it very difficult, India. But they all loved Pakistan. I mean, I've seen actually Pakistan come up on the top places they visited for a lot of people who have actually visited. These travelers who traveled all around different parts of the world. When they list their favorite places they've been to, a lot of them have Pakistan pretty high up on their lists.
Yeah. Pakistan have really beautiful places, and other than that, the hospitality of Pakistan is really good
Yeah.
compared to India.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of scammers here. Like if you have seen the videos of India, they get scammed every other day. There are a
Yeah.
lot of scammers there.
Yeah. And in Pakistan that doesn't happen a lot. Yeah. And in the UK, of course, I grew up in the UK, and we've got a lot of Pakistani, Pakistanis there. I've had a lot of Pakistani friends over the years. Amazing people. Inshallah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to ask. It was my first day here. I edited your video. That video was really good.
Yeah.
How you explained how ibadat. i- Wait, and namaz is not ibadat. Namaz. These are all
Yeah.
not. That was really beautifully explained. Like I never saw someone explain it like that. And there is a question that came into my mind the other day. Like Allah can do everything. So can he erase his existence?
Say that again.
Like Allah can do whatever he wants. Can he erase his existence? Like can he end himself?
Well, no, because I mean, it's a philosophical question, right? I mean, people like to just ask sort of like these questions, which aren't really, they don't get you anywhere. They don't really help. There's sort of like these kind of questions where, having it's sort of these are sort of questions where once you have above a certain reverence for Allah, right? You would not even you wouldn't even think of these questions or want to ask them. They're sort of like the questions that somebody would ask when they're still in a state of sort of like analyzing Allah, where Allah is not so much, Allah is not their Rabb as much, but it's like a concept to be analyzed, right? And when God is still that for you, and it's fine. Pretty much everybody goes through that, right? Kids go through that, right? And young age, you start asking, well, can God do this? Is he like, you're trying to understand more, right? But after a certain amount of thing, it just, your reverence for Allah should overtake these kind of questions at all. But still, of course, the scholars and people of the past, philosophers, did try to answer all of these questions. Like, could God create a stone so heavy that even he couldn't lift? Or can God create a square circle, right? And the answer to all of these questions is no, because you're talking about things which are impossibilities, right? You're talking about logical impossibilities. So God can't do something which is a logical impossibility. Okay, it's only in the realm of the possible, right? And of course, that is constrained by the ideas of we're talking about possible and impossible within the laws of the universe that we know, right? So you could imagine a completely different. Well, you can't actually imagine it. That's the whole point. But there could be a universe created by God which is completely different, where some of these things are possible, right? But in what God has created, right, inside this creation, saying that, to make a rock that even he can't lift, that's an impossibility. In the creation that as he has created, for him to make a square circle, it's impossible, because the definitions are just square and circle are just completely incompatible. And outside of that, right, God is, of course, not going to be constrained by any of this. And so the idea that he could end himself or commit suicide, right, that's again an impossibility, right, because he's a necessary being, right, the necessary being, as the philosophers would say. So no, the short answer is no.
Okay. And
Yeah.
earlier you talked about that you won't get into heaven and hellfire just because of your beliefs. I
Mm,
belong to a family, so we have this belief, like not me, but all the Shia people have this belief that if someone don't accept the wilaya of Imam Ali alayhi salam, they
mm,
won't get in, no matter how good they are, how much they are praying.
mm,
Like my mom is studying, like she's becoming a religious scholar, so I do have debates like these with her.
mm,
Uh, I was asking her, like, if someone is praying and he's fasting and he's following Allah's orders, but he doesn't have wilaya, he doesn't accept Imam Ali as the first Khalifa.
mm,
Why won't he get into Jannah?
mm.
So how would you explain it?
Well, to be honest, as far as I know about Shiaism, is that they don't have that as a condition for entering into Jannah. Like, they don't have that as a condition of being a Muslim even, right? So the idea that you're not a Muslim if you don't accept the wilaya of Imam Ali, as far as I know, maybe the Tashayyu you have in Pakistan is a bit different, but from what I've seen and heard and had explained to me, is that it's just not the case, right? That is a condition, right? Um, but generally, I would just say that this is, of course, just a sectarian addition to it, right? You should take your deen primarily from the Quran, right? The Quran makes no mention of these kind of like conditions of wilaya to enter Jannah and these sort of things. And just philosophically, why should it, right? Allah didn't create us to see which of us would accept wilaya, right? Allah created us to see which of us is best in deeds and best in actions, right? That's why we're here in this world. So it makes no sense to say on the back of the whole of what the Quran is portraying as why we are here in this world and how we enter Jannah or hell and why we go to each. To say, okay, all of that doesn't matter. What matters is that you accept the wilaya of Imam Ali. And I would also say that this is a very it's something which every religious sect does, right? They make the thing which is unique to their own sect, to their own religion, the thing for which you'll be saved by, and the thing by which if you don't have it, you will not be saved. Okay, it's something which every religious sect does. So the Christians, they say no, you must accept the blood of Jesus, right? And if you don't accept the blood of Jesus, the sacrifice of Jesus, then no matter how good you are, how many good deeds you do, no matter how much you have belief in God or faith in God, it doesn't matter. You will not enter Jannah, right? Because you have to be that. The Jews say the same thing, right? I mean, you have it in the Quran. وقالوا لن يدخل الجنة إلا من كان هودا أو نصارى, and they say none will enter Jannah except if he is a Christian or a Jew. Okay, and of course that's not true. And now, of course, you have the same thing with Muslims. You know, they will say, nobody will enter Jannah unless they are Shia. Nobody will enter Jannah unless they are Sunni. No one will enter Jannah unless they are Salafi or Wahhabi. Everybody makes their own sect to have the special ingredient, the magic ingredient, the access card to Jannah. Right? And it's the thing which is unique in their own religion. But it's just not the case, right? Even between, even the Quran mentions how قالت النصارى ليست اليهود على شيء وقالت اليهود ليست النصارى على شيء. They say that the Jews say that the Nasara have nothing. The Jews say that the Christians are upon nothing, and the Christians say that the Jews are upon nothing, yet they both recite the book. They both recite the book, right? So, when you say, when a Shia says a Sunni is upon nothing, meaning they will not go to Jannah, right? Let's say they say that about a Salafi, and the Salafi says that about a Sufi, a Shi'i, then they're basically saying the same thing as what the Jews and Christians say, right? They both say that they are upon nothing, that the other is upon nothing, yet they both have the same scripture. And the same thing is happening there. The Shia and the Salafi will say the same thing about each other, yet they both recite the Quran. They both have the Quran. They both have the Quran as a guidance. So it makes no sense. But to be honest, I'm not convinced that is part of mainstream Shiism. Definitely not. I think that they say that if you don't accept the wilaya of Imam Ali, then you don't go to Jannah. I don't think that's accurate.
Well, I don't know about other countries, but in Pakistan, I have heard it from a lot of Maulanas, and I have heard my mother saying this and many of my family members. So
Yeah.
I had a debate with my mother about this, but
Hmm.
I was always like, Allah will judge us based on the knowledge He gave us. He
Yeah.
can't just beyond that. Like if we don't have knowledge about something, same goes for someone. Like if someone is drinking alcohol, but he doesn't know that it's haram,
Hmm.
he won't be judged for that. So
Yeah.
same was my argument.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. That's true. Definitely to a certain extent, that is true. There are some things, of course, which are by fitrah. Whether you have knowledge that Allah has made it haram or not, you will still be taken into account for it, right? Because you know the right from the wrong, right? The Quran says, "Inna al-insana ala nafsihi basira," right? That the human being, knows himself. So somebody who's stealing, right? He doesn't have the excuse of saying, "I didn't know that Allah has made stealing haram." That's not an excuse.
Hmm.
Somebody who murders, you can't say, "Oh, I didn't know Allah says murder is haram." No. Okay. So there are some universal things, sins and good deeds, which everybody knows, right? It's part of our fitrah, right? That Allah has given us, fujuruha wa taqwaha, right? That we've inspired in the human being the fujur and the taqwa, knowledge of the fujur and the taqwa. But yeah, I mean, that might be the case in Pakistan, because I know the problem is, of course, even though Pakistan is an amazing place and people are lovely, the Maulana scenes, there is a lot of ignorance there. And there is a lot of ignorance, even
Right,
among
right.
among them. There is a lot of like this kind of ignorant stuff happening there. I know, there are some Ramadan. The funny thing, there are some like mosques. There are some mosques in Pakistan where what they will do is try to recite the whole of the Quran in the first 3 days in Taraweeh, and then they
Mm-hmm.
think they've done their duty for the whole of Ramadan because they've got this concept in their mind that the point of Ramadan is to recite the point of praying at night in Ramadan, the Taraweeh, is to recite the whole Quran in prayer. So they say, okay, let's just do it all in 3 days, and then for the rest of the month we can relax. And they do that. And so there are lots of mosques which do that. I mean, and these are like Mawlanas and scholars and people, imams of mosques doing this, leading the salah like that. People who have memorized the whole Quran, of course, are doing that. So, I mean, I wouldn't hold too much into it. I mean, the centers of Tashayyu knowledge, of Shi'i knowledge, is in is Iraq and Iran, right? So it's
Mm.
Qum, and of course you have the two different types of Tashayyu as well. You have the Arab Shiism and the Iranian Shiism, right? And you have the the Wilayat Takwiniya guys of Khomeini, and then you have the Sistani version, which doesn't accept this Wilayat Takwiniya, right? That Wilayat al-Faqih, I'm sorry, they don't accept that. So I don't know. I mean, I'd just say, I wouldn't have these long debates. I don't know how when you like speak to your mom about it. If it's nice and civil, yeah, talk about it, discuss things. But if it's like heated debates, then I would just say, what, don't push too hard into it.
Nana, my mom is chill about it. I can talk to her about anything. But my dad, he's kind of extremist, so I avoid talking to
Yeah,
him
but
about religious beliefs.
yeah,
My mom is chill.
yeah, your mind is okay. Yeah, that's good. That's wise. Wise.
And we Muslim, I don't know about other countries, but in Pakistan, we have this belief that we Muslims are promised that we will go to Jannah.
Yeah,
So how, like, if someone is sinning, he will go to hellfire first, then go to Jannah afterwards.
yeah.
So how does Quran explains this?
Well, it's first of all, it's not true that that somebody who enters hell will ever leave it. So the Quran is very explicit that going to Jannah, going to hell, whoever goes to hell remains in hell. Nobody leaves hell, right?
Mm,
That's the first thing. And then the other thing about that um, that if you're as long as you're Muslim, you will definitely go to Jannah. That's not true as well, right? So the Quran, mentions a number of sins, for example, and things for which a person can go into hell forever, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim, right? Being Muslim has no real bearing on it, in terms of like Muslim religiously. Um, Being a Muslim in terms of Qur'anically, like the Islam of Ibrahim, is something different, right? The Islam of Ibrahim means like the total submission to Allah, right? That's different from the Islam of the Bedouins, which is just sort of like a verbal acceptance of Islam without any iman, right? So no, the Quran definitely rejects this idea that you're a Muslim, and then you will definitely enter Jannah. You'll go to hell first for a little bit if you're sinful, and then go to Jannah. No, right? Um, you have to understand one thing that God judging somebody to go into hell, right, is only for the worst of the worst, right? When Quran talks about ulaikum sharrul bariyah, that they are the worst of creation. Right? If they're the worst of creation and then they enter hell, why is Allah going to take them out of hell and put them in Jannah when they're the worst of creation? Okay, no,
mm,
they go into hell and they remain there, right? Nobody, the people who go into hell are the people who really really deserve to go to hell, right? Nobody. It's not sort of like. Don't think of it in terms of like there are going to be people who just scraped the ability to go into Jannah, or people who just managed to go into hellfire. Like if they had just done one more good deed, they wouldn't have been in hellfire. No, right? That isn't how it works, right? There's a complete divide between them, right? Think of it more like everybody, like somebody, like people will be doing a test, and everybody will either, because of the nature of the test, everybody will either get above 90%, right, or they will get below 20%. The below
mm,
20% go to hell, and above 90% go to Jannah. Everybody will be in one or the other. There isn't going to be anybody who gets like 50%, another person 49%, another one 51%, like in the middle, right? No, right? That's part of how this dunya is formed, right? That you'll be tested in it until it's absolutely clear whether you're a person of Jannah or a person of hell. Okay, nobody goes into Jannah by the skin of their teeth, like they just made it, and nobody is unlucky and got to hell there. If something different had happened in life, they wouldn't have ended up in hell. No, right? The
mm,
people who ended up in hell, no matter if they'd had their lives 1,000 times over, they would have ended up in hell 1,000 times again. Okay, not because God predestined them that way, but because that's what they are. Okay, that's what they are. They are people who would choose these again and again. And the Quran mentions that, right? Mentions about the people of hell, that ولو عادوا لو رددناهم, what was it? لعادوا لما نهوا عنه. That if we had brought them back, they're asking, the people in hell are saying, Allah, let us go back. We will do good deeds other than what we used to do, which is another key verse which tells you that those who enter hell only enter hell because of their deeds. Because they are asking, they're saying, oh Allah, let us go out and we will do deeds other than what we used to do. We will do good deeds other than the bad deeds we used to do. Right? But
Right.
Allah answers saying no. إنها كلمة مقائلها. These are just words that they say. And if we had brought them back, they would have gone back to their previous deeds. They would have gone back to exactly the same way they were. Okay? Because that's what it is. And no matter how many times they would leave hellfire and be brought back to the dunya, they would act in the same way again. Okay? It's because they are corrupt. They've corrupted themselves in that sort of way. Okay? Their own choices corrupted them, and they are happy with it. And even hell isn't a cure for that. Even hell isn't. So some people say, why can't people just go into hell for a little bit, be punished, and then leave? They've learned their lesson. No, the people who enter hellfire are not people who would learn their lesson even with hellfire. Okay, even with hellfire, these people would not learn their lesson. You would take them out, put them in this world, and they would continue to oppress and kill and do whatever. Take somebody like Benjamin Netanyahu, right? Put him in hell for 1,000 years, he'll come back and he'll still try to continue the genocide of Palestinians. Right? It's not. There are people who are that corruption. You have to understand that you have that level of corruption in people, just as you have the opposite. You have people who are absolutely amazing, like angels, right? And you have people who are worse than devils. Okay. And the same thing, the people who end up in Jannah, if you were to take them out of Jannah and you bring them and you let them repeat their life 1,000 times, every time they would end up being good people and they would go into Jannah. Okay, they would give them another life. They would not be able to bring themselves to murder somebody, right? They would not be able to bring themselves to, do these huge bad deeds and then not try to make amends. Because even you can do major sins and make amends. That happens, right? Repent and make amends and these sort of things. But that's how it is. Okay, so there's no idea of only Muslims going to Jannah, and there's no idea of Muslims going to hell for a little bit and then eventually going to Jannah, no matter what they do. No. Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. I'm actually very new to this.
No
I
problem.
have not been very religious. Like, I'm young. Recently, I started praying, and I find it really interesting. Like, I want to study more about Islam, so I will start studying about Islam even more. I have to go. Inshallah, I'll have a nice conversation with you next time. I'll bring new questions, and inshallah, we'll have a good conversation about those questions.
No problem.
Thank you so much for your time.
Anytime. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Take care. Okay, that was Salman from Pakistan. Again, thank you to him and to Abdul Nasir for making those shorts, and inshallah I will add them to I'll upload them to the channel soon. I just got somebody backstage, so I'm going to bring you on, Sam Qur'anist, but not for too long, hopefully, because it's getting late where I am and we need to call it a night soon. Assalamu alaikum, Sam. Oh, your thing is not connected, or you're muted. You want me to unmute you?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Oh, right, Sam. Sam from UK.
Yes, I'm from UK.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, excellent.
Yes, good.
How are things? I actually saw, what did I see? I came across you I don't know what it was. Something came on my feed. I think it's one of those streams. What was it? Those Dawa guys again. One of those Dawa guys. I don't know which. Some video popped up on my phone or something. I just tapped it quickly.
Dawa.
Which one was it?
F Dawa.
Yeah, EF Dawa or something, right? And I just scrolled through and just saw you, and I saw your name pop up. Oh, I heard you. Oh, and I'm like, my my boy Sam. I didn't listen to the interaction, though. To be honest, I was busy, so I didn't actually listen to what you were speaking to them about. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a coincidence that I came across you that way.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, them Dawa guys. Yeah, they're always. They don't let you. I don't know when they corner you, when they prove them wrong. Yeah, they don't know. They don't accept it, and then they wanna, they overtalk you, and then they basically they want to kick you off. So
Yeah.
yeah, but with that particular conversation, yeah, it was about some guy they had on here. They said, okay, there's the Quran says, yeah, pray 5 times a day, and I was I'm not come across that verse yet. So I said, bring it up. So when they brought you up, yeah, it was a particular translation that said in it, there's 5 obligatory prayers in brackets or in square quotes. And I said to him, look, that is wrong. That's the wrong translation. Yeah.
It's not even, it's not a translation. It's like they're just adding explanation, what they think is explanation.
Yeah, and I go, yeah, they're doing wrong there, yeah. They should have done that. And then they won't admit they did it wrong. So it's like, I was just a bit disappointed. I think, look, you guys, yeah, you should at least admit your mistake and say, yeah, this guy got it wrong. But the way we do that. And I said, yeah, I mean, but, Anyway, I think that they're too indoctrinated, so they don't really understand what you're saying to them. But anyway, I've got another question for you basically now, yeah. And, I was thinking about the hadith here, and, obviously, as as Qur'anics, most Qur'anics, they don't believe in hadith because of either unreliability or I don't know what, maybe just it's not divine. And we know it's not divine, yeah, but I will try to reconcile the hadith with the hadith we have.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that one of the things I was thinking about here is why did the Prophet Muhammad pray a certain way, and why was he praying towards Jerusalem? I think that's what the Sunnis say, don't they? Is that right?
Well, when they're arguing with Qur'anists, you mean?
Yeah, I was Qur'anists, yeah, and I think there's some sort of historical text here that said, the Prophet prayed towards Jerusalem, and the Jews, they pray a similar way, don't they, in terms of bowing and prostrating?
I'm not really sure what you're asking about, to be honest. But yeah, that the Prophet originally prayed towards Jerusalem. Yeah, that's pretty well known.
Yeah, so is that from the hadith?
Yeah, I mean it's mentioned in hadith. It's not from the hadith. I mean the evidence that happened is in hadiths. Yes, but it's also in the original mosque. You have the mosque of the Qiblatain, right? So you had that mosque which was where the Qibla was towards Jerusalem, right?
Right.
And then a new minbar had to be made to face Mecca, right? So the mosque is known as the mosque of the two Qiblas, because in that mosque the sort of like the change happened, right? The verse came down and then they straight away changed to the other direction. So a new minbar was put into it. And so you have that there as like sort of like almost a historical artifact, which of course just confirms that it confirms what the Quran says already, that you had one qibla and then the qibla was changed.
Yeah, so I think the Sunnis argue that there must have been a revelation that came down to the Prophet Muhammad to tell him to pray towards Jerusalem. I think that's what they say. Have you heard of that argument?
What they say. Yeah, I've heard that. That was, what's his name? That was called Jake, the former Quranist, right? He came up with that argument. From what I remember, he has an argument that where is the where is the if all you need is the Quran, and where are the verses which told the Prophet to pray towards Jerusalem?
Yeah.
So,
and then there's no hadiths, that where an instruction came down to tell the Prophet to pray towards Jerusalem, is there?
Well, no, I don't think so. As far as I know, there isn't.
As far as I know, there isn't either. So, I don't know. He had me. I don't know why he has someone question him on that. Yeah, but why do you think the Prophet Muhammad prayed towards Jerusalem?
Well, I mean, the reason for it is given in the Quran, right? The reason for it is given that the original Qibla was made, right, so that when it was changed, we could know those who would follow the messenger from those who would not. So the reason for it is given in the Quran. It's part of the ibtila. Again, one of the core thing in the Quran is to understand is that God is constantly testing people. The ibtila. Right up to the end, up to in Surah Al-Ma'idah, they were being tested, right? Like one of the last surahs talks about how you're going to be tested with hunting, right? The hunting. So they were told not to hunt while in ihram. When they're going towards ihram, when they're in haram, when they're going towards Mecca to do the Hajj or a pilgrimage, they were not allowed to hunt anymore, right? And at the time, of course, this was part of the normal thing that they would hunt a rabbit or whatever on the road and eat it. Okay, but they were told now you're not allowed to hunt.
Yeah, I can understand it's a test yet to change the Qibla, but why pray towards Jerusalem in the first place?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things where you need some tadabbur, you need to sort of like think about it a bit more. So the way I understand it is this, that one of the reasons, one of the ways in which some of the people followed the Prophet, why did they follow the Prophet, is because he was sort of like they saw him as sort of like adopting and confirming the Jewish scriptures and the Jewish Qibla, right? So because they were doing it in the same way as those, right, they felt that he's in the right. As long as you're doing the Qibla according to our direction, we will follow you. But as soon as you change your way to a different direction, we're not going to follow you, right? So it weeded out those people. Right? Because when the Prophet went to Medina, of course, there's a Jewish community there. And not only that, this wasn't just an issue for the Jews, it was also an issue for the Arabs. Some of the Arabs who had followed the Prophet Muhammad, they followed him sort of like also seeing him, okay, he's sort of like the Jews, okay? He's praying towards the Qibla, right? So they were sort of influenced by seeing that he was sort of like, he was like the Jews and he was like almost like them, that he was he was following their Qibla, right? And so, but when they saw him sort of like deviating from that, he's like, oh, so you're just like another Arab now doing your own thing, praying towards now Mecca. Okay, I don't want anything to do with that, right? I want to be like, it's sort of like an inroad that they had to be like one of the Jews by following the Prophet who was praying towards Jerusalem. Some people had this sort of inferiority complex towards the Jewish people who had this long tradition, right, and the history of them and the people of God and etc. And this was sort of like a way in with them, okay. And when he abandoned that, now he's praying towards Mecca, which they saw, oh well, when this is just the Kaaba of the Arabs. Well, I don't want to be just like any of the other Arabs. I want to be like the Jews. So now I'm going to turn away from the Prophet. I'm not going to follow him anymore.
So why do you think the Prophet prayed towards Jerusalem? Because it was for the Jews.
No, it was a test. It was a test to see.
I'm saying, in terms of why initially turn towards Jerusalem and follow the way the Jews were doing it. Why did he go that way?
Because it would weed out those who were following him only because he was praying towards where they were praying. Right? It would weed out those who were following him only because he was confirming the Jewish scripture. And if when he stops conforming to the Jews, then they would stop following him. Okay? Do you understand?
Okay. And See, my take on this is like, so so do you think he got revelation, or he just did it of his own will?
No. He got revelation, definitely.
He got revelation.
Yeah.
This is where I'm beginning to think here. He didn't get revelation. I'm thinking here. You start getting a verse of the Quran, and in terms of the beliefs in the Quran, it was worshiping one God, and I think he found the Jews, they were they were the monotheists in that area, and maybe he just started following their way because it seemed right to him. I don't think he got. I'm thinking he didn't get revelation, and
well,
and
do you believe he had revelation outside of the Quran?
He may have, but I don't think in this particular instance, he did. He did. I think he just he saw the Jews were monotheistic, and he felt that was the right to follow their way, what they were doing.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I suppose you could think, I mean, but the more direct, literal, what the verse says is that God did it, right? I mean, you know the verse. I don't need to repeat it, but just for everybody else who's listening, the verse says, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا الْقِبْلَةَ الَّتِي كُنْتَ عَلَيْهَا إِلَّا لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ. The verse says that we did not assign, we did not make, مَا جَعَلْنَا, we did not make the qibla which you were upon, except so that we might know who would follow the messenger from those who would turn away from on their heels, basically. Okay, and it was indeed a big thing, except upon those who Allah guided. So I mean, it seems pretty clear that it was something which Allah made, and He made it with the express purpose of testing to see when the qibla got changed, who would follow Him and who would not. Who would think, so now you're just doing this from your own head. You're just making it up as you go along, right? If you were really a person of monotheism and following the religion of Ibrahim and stuff, you would continue with the qibla, right? That the Jews are doing, right? The Jews are monotheists, so you should be continuing that. But you're just making this up as you go along, right? Because that's what people would sort of think. I mean, imagine, look. We have the gift of foresight now, right? Sort of a hindsight. Islam won in the end, and it became a global religion. But put yourself in the position of an Arab, right? Just an Arab in Medina, okay? And you hear that some man of Quraysh over there in Mecca, we are like these nobody people in the middle of the desert, and one of these Arabs over there in Mecca has declared himself a prophet. Right? You've lived in Medina all your life, and you've seen the Jewish people. You've seen how they have the Torah. You see how all of this. Now you're a pagan and stuff, and you don't follow them because you're part of your tribe. You're part of the Khazraj or Uwais. It's a tribal thing. But then suddenly, what happens is an emissary of the Prophet comes to Medina, and he starts to speak to all of the people, and many people convert. And then, some of the leaders of the Arabs in Medina send a delegation to Mecca, and they promise the Prophet, if you come to us, we will protect you. And then suddenly the Prophet is in Medina, and he's building a mosque, right? And now suddenly, it seems attainable. You're not sort of like these lower level, nobody people, right? You are starting to get a scripture from one of your own, from one of the Arabs, right? And it's like the Jewish people that you've grown up all around, like these Jewish tribes in Medina. You've seen them, that this community, they have this huge religious heritage, okay? And now you're about to become like one of them. And not only that, he's teaching what they're teaching, pretty much, monotheism. And look at it, he's praying in the direction that they're praying, all right? And you're starting to think, okay, yeah, I can, have faith in this. I've got this looks like it's something we can follow. And then suddenly he changes. He says, no, we're not praying towards Jerusalem anymore. We're praying back towards Mecca, where I am from, right? Because where's the Prophet from, Muhammad? From Mecca. So now we have to pray towards your city where you were born. We have to pray towards the Kaaba, your Kaaba. Now you have some doubts. Now you say, okay, no, I'm not going to follow you anymore, right? I don't know. This now. I think you're just making it up. You're making it up. This isn't a revelation from you. You're now just trying to get us to be sort of like, on board with you. You're creating something for yourself, your own way, your own sect, your own this. Right? No, I'm not on board with this anymore. All right? If you were there at the time, right, it would have been a big deal, except for those who Allah guided. That's what the Quran says. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ. And it was indeed a big thing, this change of the Qibla. It wasn't a small thing, right? It wasn't a small thing. إِنْ كَانَتْ لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ. Right? It was a big thing, except upon those who Allah had guided. Right? For them, it wasn't a big issue. They say, okay, pray towards Jerusalem. Okay, well, now we're going to pray towards Mecca. So what? Allah is not in any direction. Lillahi al-mashriq wal-maghrib. And the Kaaba was built by Ibrahim. Yes, we'll pray towards Mecca. Right? It's not an issue. But for other people, the ones who are thinking in this sort of sectarian kind of way, this sort of like religious like rivalry kind of way, this sort of like inferiority complex with the Jews, they have all of this sort of like doubts and background baggage and stuff. No, it's a big thing, right? Why are you changing the Qibla? For what? What's the reason? What's the ulterior motive you have behind that? Okay, there's an issue there, right? You have to understand that God is testing what's in the hearts. God is always testing what's in the hearts, right? Sifting people. Who has faith? Who doesn't have faith? Who will follow the messenger? Who will not follow the messenger? Okay.
Oh, that makes sense. But I'll ask him from the angle, that I was from the angle he didn't get revelation, and he saw the Jews are the ones who were, monotheistic, and he thought, it's follow their way, and
I mean,
that's why.
If you put it that way, I mean, I can't really comment because I just don't see that's the basis for it. I mean, if it was for him, why would that verse say that? Why would that verse say, and we did not assign the Qibla that you were upon, except so that we know who would follow the messenger from those who would turn away, right, from him. So why would they turn away, right?
Yeah, you got a point there. You would. He says the sign, but it's just that because there's no other revelation, it just seems like they got obligated.
We don't know, right? We don't know. I mean, the thing about it, you have to remember. I mean, it depends on whether you accept that the Prophet received wahi outside of the Quran or not, right? And the Quran indicates in a number of places that he did receive wahi outside of the Quran, right? Like, I mean, I mentioned in the last stream, I think it was the last stream, or was the one before that, about what was it, the one I called about God's deception, where he showed the dream to the Prophet, right? The dream is mentioned in the Quran. That the Prophet received the dream, and also in the story of the Battle of Badr, which is mentioned in the Quran, that that Allah says that He promised you that He would remember when He promised you that He is going to send for you angels that will that will support you. Well, that's not in the Quran. That promise is in the Quran, right? The thing about Zayd, the marriage of Zayd, that's not mentioned in the Quran. There are references to wahi outside of the Quran in the Quran, and even wahi doesn't have to be only to prophets as well. I mean, you have wahi that was given to the disciples of Isa, right? So one of those, وَأَوْحَيْتُ لِلْحَوَارِيِّينَ, when I gave wahi to the disciples of Isa, of Jesus, that you should have faith in me and in my messenger.
Also, I think Mother Moses got a revelation.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I have no issue with seeing that the Prophet received wahi and revelation outside of the Quran, right? And so that he would receive wahi about what qibla to have now, in order for later for it to be changed and to see who will follow the messenger in that change and who will not. That is in line with the sunnah of Allah in testing people. Yeah,
I'm going to issue with that. I'm just thinking in terms of like, when you read the hadith, it seems like certain thing that the Prophet did, was by his own volition, by his own will. Yeah, and definitely. I was thinking in terms of like the prayer, I was thinking, since he's facing the Qibla, of Jerusalem, and I think that he copied the Jews' way of praying as well. It wasn't via revelation.
It could be. I mean, we don't have any indication about that in the Quran, about in the Quran, it seems to say that that the Prophet established a prayer for them, right? أقمت لهم الصلاة, when you establish the prayer for them. So the Quran doesn't have any indication that Allah made the way to pray. But I mean, it's inference you could make, right? If Allah had chosen the Qibla, the first Qibla, the direction of the prayer, and if then Allah chose the change, the new Qibla, right? If that was part of Wahi, that was given, the first Qibla was Wahi, not in the Quran, right? And of course, up to that point, they had already been praying. Why wouldn't the way that the Prophet actually prayed be Wahi as well? If he was given a direction to prayer, why wouldn't the how to pray also be Wahi? And maybe it's not. Maybe again he chose the way to pray, and that's fine as well. I mean, I've mentioned many times on this channel that I think that you're free to pray however you want, right? The actual method of how to pray is not mentioned in the Quran because God will accept more than one way to pray. There's not just one way that you have to pray.
Yeah, I believe as well. But I pray with the way Sunnis pray because, like, it's like you're gonna get frowned upon, isn't it? You pray a different way. So it's like,
yeah, definitely.
But I'm thinking, I think there's kind of a certain level of arrogance here that the way the Prophet prayed, that's like a holy way, But I think reading the way the Jews prayed, he's copying their style. And sometimes they make it as if, look, with the kind of like gloat here. Look, even the Jews pray like the Prophet prayed. When he said, it's the Prophet prayed the way the Jews prayed, and they don't. The Sunnis would not like that. They think, okay, that's Buddhism. Why would the Prophet copy the Jews?
But the thing about it, I don't know why they would be upset with that. They use those same arguments when they debate with Jews and Christians. And look, in even your own scriptures, you prayed. The Muslims are praying the way that that's shown that you guys pray in your own scripture, right? So when they talk about how Jesus put his head to the ground and prayed,
in the Jewish scripture, it doesn't tell them how to pray.
It doesn't, but you have indications in the I don't know if it doesn't.
In the Gospels,
but there are indications in the Bible, about how Jesus fell down, put his face to the ground, and prayed, right? And Moses did that. They did sujood and these sort of things, right? And then they would use this to speak to Christians, say, who in the world prays like that now? And you have people who convert because of that, right? And you have like these stories of these people who enter prison, who they had grown up like a little bit religious. They tried to be religious, but then they found the wrong way and they became criminals, ended up in prison, right? So they were already familiar with the Bible and stuff, and then they start to learn about the Muslims, and they end up becoming close to Muslims in prison, and then they say, okay, why don't you come and watch us pray? And then they go and watch them pray, and then they see them all praying prostrate with their face on the ground, and they remember all of those verses in the Bible where all these prophets prayed that way, and they're like, oh my God, you guys are the ones who actually pray the way the prophets are mentioned as praying in the Bible. And that leads to people converting even, right? So it is what it is, right?
So I think so. So I'm thinking the more hadith I read, it seemed like a lot of stuff the Prophet did, it was like the copying from the Jews or the Christians, or doing it from his own will, and it takes away the Sunni ideology. He did it through revelation, and God taught him, and this is what they're following, what God taught the Prophet to do. And I think it's someone that I think the Sunnis find hard to accept.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to. I mean, remember, we do have verses in the Quran which say that God was one who taught the Prophet what he did not know, right? وَعَلَّمَكَ مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ تَعْلَمْ, right? That God was taught, that the Prophet was taught by Allah, right? So, I mean, Quranically, it's perfectly acceptable to say that the way the Prophet prayed, that the way he did fasted, the way he did all of these things, even if they look like that's how the Jews, that he's just copying the Jews. But no, he didn't learn it from those. He learned these things from Allah, that Allah taught him, because Allah taught him what he did not know. Right? It's a general verse, of course, but it gets the point across. وعلمك ما لم تكن تعلم. It's verse, let me pull it out actually. وعلمك. It's in Surah An-Nisa, verse 130, 113, right? At the end of it says, عليك وأنزل الله عليك الكتاب, and God sent down upon you the kitab, the prescriptions, والحكمة, and wisdom, وعلمك ما لم تكن تعلم, and he taught you, first person singular, you, Muhammad, he taught you ما لم تكن تعلم, what you did not know. Okay, so he did know how to pray, you can say God taught him how to pray. He didn't know how to fast, God taught him how to fast. He did not know how to do Hajj, God taught him the right way to do Hajj, right? I mean, for example, like the Jews, he couldn't have learned how to do the Hajj from the Jews, right? I mean, we can both accept that, right? So where did he learn how to do it from? Well, you can say that he learned it from, that's how the Arabs always did it. Well, that you could make that argument, but there's traditions which seem to show that Quraysh in particular had done things a little bit differently before, right? وعلمك ما لم تكن تعلم, and then it says وكان فضل الله عليك عظيما, and the bounty or the favor of Allah upon you was immense, عظيم, huge. Okay, so we shouldn't minimize that and say, well, that he didn't receive any fadl from Allah apart from the Quran, right? No, Allah taught him what he did not know as well, right? Not just in the kitab, not just the hikmah. No, he was taught a lot of things, and part of that includes prophecy, I think, of course, because of course prophecy isn't in the Quran, and he's a prophet, right? Like some of the hadiths where he foretold things that would happen in the future, signs of the Day of Judgment, these sort of things. Of course, not all of them are true, the ones which are narrated in hadiths and stuff. But of course, he's a prophet. Prophets prophesize. They tell about what's going to happen in the future. Okay? And that's part of what God teaches him. So it will be strange to me to say that God will teach all of these things to the prophet, but not teach him a way to pray. Okay? Or not teach him this or that, or not, and that he just, figured it out or made up one on his own. Why would he as well? Why wouldn't he wait to have something from God about this?
But in
like
the Old Testament,
let me put it this way: if you were a prophet, right, and you were receiving revelation from God, would you go out and and decide, okay, let me figure out the best way to pray, or would you say, okay, let me I'll be like a servant waiting at his master's door, waiting for instructions, and he will teach me what I need to do, right? I mean, one of the verses which I take as showing the correct adab, the correct etiquette towards God, shows towards the messenger. I take it as as the messenger having that same etiquette towards God. The verse which says, "Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasuli." O you who have faith, do not go ahead of God and His messenger. Right? Do not start to make things by yourself. Do not ask do not ask until you're that verse is saying basically do not over question. Just wait, we will teach you. Okay?
Yeah.
That have patience, trust God that He's going to explain the religion to you. He's going to slowly unfold it to you as you need it in the best way for you. He's not going to dump it all onto you, right? So just wait and be patient and be ready to listen. You just have to be quiet, receptive, and ready to listen. You don't have to go out and figure things out by yourself. You don't have to create the religion by yourself, right? Because you could say the same thing what Muslims did. Okay, the Prophet did not give us direct instructions on how to do this or that, so we'll go and figure out how to do it ourselves. We'll find our own way. Okay, that isn't the right approach that you should be having, right? In a period of revelation from God, you're supposed to be receptive, and a messenger will be more so than that, right? He's not going to sit there and think, okay, then I'm the messenger of God. Let me now go out and create my own way to pray, create this, do this by myself. No, he'll be sort of like waiting to be instructed by God, right? He'll be careful. He would not want to do things wrong. Right? He would want to do things in the best way. So, I certainly, if I was like a messenger of God or something, right, I wouldn't try to make my own way to pray. I would wait. I would like, ask God for instructions.
How long would you wait?
However long God wanted, right? That's the whole point. That's the whole
Yeah, but I'm
point of being a
saying,
servant. You don't, a slave, a servant doesn't say, okay, how I'm going to wait just 5, I'll wait 1 year, 5, or I don't know, 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 year. It doesn't matter. I'll wait this long and then I'll do what I want. That's not the attitude of an abd. The abd, the servant, waits indefinitely until he's told not to wait, right? So that's what I'm talking about. That kind of like attitude. So, like I said, if I was a messenger, yeah, I would wait. Well, I wouldn't try to create a way to pray by myself. I'd continue doing what I used to do, right? Like in the Prophet, of course, was a person of salah even before, he prayed the way he ended up praying the way he was taught. I think, right? Like he used to go to the cave and meditate there, right? Continue doing that. But eventually, you'd be taught, right? That's the whole point of having that channel open with God. That He's going to bring instruction into this world, right? Why would you go ahead of that, right? Try to run ahead of that and do things on your own and in your own way and why block things out in that sort of way? It's almost like creating a block for yourself. Okay. Like I decide this way to pray, and okay, then God leaves me to do it my way, and maybe my way is not the best way, right? Whereas if I leave God to decide something, it's better. You see what I mean? I'm just talking about the kind of mentality I would certainly have. I certainly think the Prophet had, that he did not go in front of Allah, just as we should not go in front of the Messenger of Allah. He did not go in front of Allah.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, like you'd think, if we did get revelation, there'd be hadith. I say, this is I got revelation. This is how I pray, but there's no such hadith.
Yeah, because they did a terrible job of preserving hadiths. It's got nothing to do with. There's so much lost from what the Messenger of Allah taught and spoke about. It's unbelievable. I mean, the more you study it, the more I've looked into this. It's so much is gone. So much is gone, and what's left is so much of it is distorted. Right? Most of the hadiths come from only 4 or 5 Sahaba. Right? There are Sahaba who used to be with the Prophet all of their lives, who died late, and we only have like 1 or 2 hadiths from them. That's it. It's because it's political, right? Political. Like one of the earliest converts was Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. He almost became caliph. He was one of the leaders of the armies, right? He was one of the leaders of the armies in the conquests, right? He was a Prophet's cousin. He's supposed to be one of the 10 promised paradise. He was one of the 6 that were in the council to choose the 3rd caliph. He wasn't a small person. He spent all of his life after his military stuff. He was also a governor, but then afterwards he spent all of his time in Medina, right? Same place with Abu Huraira, right? Yet in the 6 Sunni collections, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas has 150 narrations to his name. Abu Huraira, and they both died in the same year. Abu Huraira, who converted late, right, who hardly spent any real time with the Prophet, right, but because he was the governor, right, and he was the governor for the Umayyads, for Muawiyah, right, his links towards the subsequent political system made it so that he became the primary narrator. Right, he narrated over, how many was it? Like over 1,000 narrations. What was it, 2,000 or something? Right, 2,000 versus Sa'd, 150. They both died the same. They were living in the same Medina, meaning that the people who took hadiths from Abu Huraira, they could have taken them from Sa'd as well. Right, they were both equally Sahaba, weren't they? They were both in Medina, right? And Sa'd wasn't shy about narrating hadiths. Some people try to use this excuse, say that Abu Huraira loved to narrate, right? Where Sa'd didn't like to narrate so much. Well, not to this extent. 2,000 versus 150. No, the issue was the political pressures regarding the hadith narrators. All of the Sahaba who have narrations over 1,000 in the Sunni collections, they are Sahaba who are close to the Umayyads in some way, either them or their students and their students' students. Whereas those who were against, who antagonized the Umayyads and Umayyad Caliphate that came later, their narrations are gone, or very few. Shaqran, you know who Shaqran is?
No.
Shaqran is one of the was one of the servants of the Prophet. Like he was part of the household of the Prophet. He has hardly any narrations. Rafi' Mawla Nabi, hardly any narrations. Okay, who is the servant of the Prophet that everybody knows about? Malik bin Anas, right? Everybody knows him, right? Why? He was like he was close to Hajjaj bin Yusuf and Umayyads and this, and it's a long story. But the point is that the political pressures, they decided which narrations came through and which didn't. Okay, so don't put it in because of that. Don't think that that the narrations we have that are what the Prophet spoke about. No, Prophet spoke about a lot more things, and a lot more of them are gone, right? And you can even see that by if you just take a survey of the Sahih narrations and compare them to the Quran, right? They are not comparable at all. What the Prophet talked about in hadiths is different from what the Quran talks about, right? Which is why, for example, like the sermons and the speeches of Ali, right? They are very different. You find that they resemble the Quran. They talk about the same themes as the Quran, right? I mean, not all of them, of course. There's a lot of there's fabrications in there as well. But generally, right, if you take them as a group, right, they resemble a lot more the themes of the Quran. They talk about nifaq a lot. They talk about kufr a lot, about shirk a lot. They talk about Allah, signs of nature. They talk about a lot of the things which the Quran talks about. They match. So how is it the Quran talks about these themes? And the Prophet's primary student, Ali, talked about these things, but the Prophet didn't? Or is it that his narrations were filtered? Right? They were filtered out. And they were. Right? They were filtered out by by who is allowed to narrate. Okay, just like now in you have in these countries like in Saudi or these, who are the ones who are allowed to speak publicly? Who are the state allowed scholars? They are the ones who everybody listens to, and so they are the ones who will people absorb from, and then they themselves will teach to others. Okay, that's how it goes, right? And was the people who are persecuted by the state, they are lost. I mean, now Saudi has pretty much forgotten. But Hassan Farhan al-Maliki, now he's been in prison for how long? Alas, I mean, it's before he used to be active. People in Saudi would hear his name, they would know about it. Now you have, people who have almost grown up like religiously in terms of in that period of your life when you start to become more awakened towards religion at a young age, your teens and up to like 19, 18, 20. You have this whole group of people now who never, they weren't around when he was, when he was appearing on channels, when he was like active on Twitter, when he was, speaking publicly, invited on TV station stuff. They don't hear from him at all. He's gone. That's a lost voice. That's what's happening now. He's being kept alive now because of people like Ziryab, my videos online and other channels who regularly publish his work. But before, if you stop talking, that's it. You're gone. You disappear. If you're not allowed to speak, given a member, you're finished. So it's the way it is, and it is the way it is anyway. Look, I'm gonna have to call it a night in a bit because it's getting pretty late where I am, and I've actually got work tomorrow. So if there's huh?
No, it's good. So were you working IT or something?
No. I've got just tomorrow. Hopefully, I'm gonna be working either. I don't think I'm going to be working from home, but I'm going to have to go in first anyway, and then maybe afterwards I'll be working from home. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay, yeah, it's good having a chat with you. Yeah. And,
yeah, definitely. Anytime.
Yeah. Take care. guys.
You too. Take care. Yalla. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right, guys. That was Sam. I don't know if there's. I want to quickly just look at some of the things which I have in the chat. Let me see. What's this? Sorry, I didn't see before. Joseph Prince from Singapore also preaches Bible in a proper way. They're connecting human beings to Yahweh through his preaching of the Bible and earlier prophet stories. And this, that's good. You see that, you could consider that to be more Islamic da'wah than some of the da'wah bros da'wah right now. This Abdul Nasir, you don't go to paradise or hellfire based on your beliefs or lack of belief, and you go to heaven or hellfire based on your actions. That's what I have learned from you. Yes, I mean, I've mentioned that many times here, and that's exactly what I would hope people would learn from you. This is the link, by the way, to that Reddit post about the, I'd call them the big 5 or big 7 Qur'anic key terms, and a quick explanation of what they are. If you don't understand these terms, I think you find it very difficult to understand the Quran in any real depths. This is the book Ethical Religious Concepts in the Quran by Zitsu. Definitely recommend it. So once again, thank you, Khalid. Salman and I will make the short videos better. The current video that Salman is working on right now is He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not. All right, excellent. Thank you again for that. I'm running behind on a live stream, but in your conversation with Silver Fox, you said that only Allah has the right prerogative to deem anything haram. Yes, that's right. So is that not a right that gets violated? Yeah, but I mean, when I'm talking about this kind, the rights which I'm talking about in this video, in this stream, when I was explaining this, I'm talking about the rights where somebody is, is, like I said, some injustice is done to them. Okay, so when you say that only God has the right to say something is halal or haram, it means it's something to say something is halal or haram to us, right? That we, because halal and haram concern us, right? So when Allah says something is halal or haram, okay, He's saying it for us. It's not something which has been, if it gets violated, it's violated for Him, right? Maybe another way to put that, it would be that we only have the right, we only should consider halal and haram to be what Allah says is halal or haram, right? And that's it. And the key point of that is that you have the halal and haram, they are both the prerogatives of Allah. That's the key point here. It's not what is typically said, which is that everything which is not haram is halal. That's not true, right? Everything which is not haram is halal, is automatically halal. That's not true. Okay, there is halal and there's haram, and then there's between them things which God has not mentioned, right? And you can't start adding, this is halal, this is haram here and everywhere. The Gnostics. What are your thoughts on the Gnostics? Those who believe you can reach salvation through knowledge. Well, I mean, knowledge should influence your actions. I mean, depends on the kind of knowledge. The thing about it, knowledge will influence actions, but you can still act contrary to knowledge. Okay, so I don't think it's always the case. I mean, in the end, it's your will, your own decisions which matter. I mean, a normal person, if they're starving, they're starving and hungry, and you put their favorite dish in front of them and you pour lethal poison all over it, they're still not going to eat it, right? Because they have the knowledge, the certainty that that's got poison in it, so they won't eat it. But they also could, right? That knowledge does not prevent them doing this action. Okay, no matter how much they know it's good or bad, right? So somebody could do good or bad even while fully knowing, right? So that's what I would say for that just for now. Yeah, they do have some really interesting views, the Gnostics. Just dropping in to say hi. Your vague video titles and thumbnails are why I never watch your videos. Yeah, I need to work on those, but sorry, but I just make them quick, and they're just really just quick live streams. They're not really much thought put into the titles or thumbnails. Where's Perfect Dawah nowadays? I have no idea. Mr. Something at, this is the first time I've seen you here take a hike. Oh, this person. All right, no problem. Thank you, Abdul Nasir, for that defense, but it's fine. I mean, I know that the thumbnails on titles aren't really the draw here. Okay, that's the end for today. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much for coming. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.